Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It is Tuesday, February the 10th, 2026. It is Spade Dawn with another episode of The Swamp. Today was a big day for committee hearings, which will comprise the bulk of tonight's episode. First, we're going to have the House Oversight Committee doing oversight of the Department of Homeland Security, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as well as CBP and USCIS. And we also have the Committee on House Administration, titled Make Elections Great Again, How to Restore Trust and Integrity in Federal Elections. We also are going to have a look at the Committee on Financial Services, titled Priced Out of the American Dream, Understanding the Policies Behind Rising Costs of Housing and Borrowing. And there was also the House Committee on Energy and Commerce today, titled Strengthening Motor Vehicle Safety and Advancing U.S. Automotive Leadership. And over on the Senate, they had a committee on the Judiciary covering Jack Smith's secret subpoenas from Arctic Frost. And they also examined broadcast media ownership in the digital age. Also, there was a House Committee on Education, which also held a hearing today. And also, in addition to all of the committee hearings, we also have House Rep. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna's update on the Epstein files after they reviewed their redacted information today. They even did some name dropping. And also, the FBI revealed new images and video in the search for Nancy Guthrie. And there's a lot more that happened today, so we're going to dive straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and subscribe to the channel. And if you drop a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. And also every article, if there are any. I'm not even sure if there's going to be any articles tonight, but if there are, they will be linked below in the description. So we're going to start right here with Thomas Massie. 3 hours ago, appearing in the Epstein files, does not prove guilt, but Leslie Wexner was designated as a co-conspirator of Epstein for child trafficking in a 2019 FBI document, and the Sultan's email address was used to send correspondence about the torture video. 4 other men and their pictures appear in a list with Epstein, Maxwell, 2 unknown victims, and several women. Today, Rep. Ro Khanna read their names on the floor of the House, and we actually have that video right here. This is from Rep. Ro Khanna. Of course, he's a Democrat, but I think we can give him a pass today because he's revealing names that have been redacted in the Epstein files, which I, for one, actually appreciate. So, Rep. Thomas Massie and I forced last night the DOJ to disclose the identities of 6 men, Salvatore Nuara, and also Zurab Lazdi, Leonid Leonov, Nikola Caputo, Sultan Ahmed bin Salayem, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner. I share details of what more we learned to hold the Epstein class accountable. Let's have a look at this.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, Congressman Massie and I went to the Department of Justice to read the unredacted Epstein files. We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted. In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason.
Why, dude?
When Congressman Massie and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. These men are Salvatore Navora, Zurab Mikoladze, Leopig Leonor, Nikola Caputa, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, CEO of Dubai Ports World, and billionaire businessman Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
Wow.
Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massie and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files. But the story gets worse.
3 million pages.
The reality is that Donald Trump's FBI scrubbed these files in March, long before Thomas Massie and I
would say it was probably long before that. It was probably Biden's FBI, probably even going all the way back to Obama's FBI probably did the same thing.
Passed the Epstein Transparency Act.
Thank you, Mr.
Now, my bill is clear. The Epstein Transparency Act requires them to unredact those FBI files. And yet the Justice Department
still a lot
said
of deep
to
state
me
actors in the
and to
FBI. Don't let
Congressman
them fool you.
Massie, we just uploaded whatever the FBI sent us. And guess what? The FBI sent scrubbed files. That means the survivor's statement to the FBI naming rich and powerful men who went to Epstein's island.
Isn't Bill Gates in here somewhere?
Who went to his
I haven't
home
seen
and
anything from Bill
raped
Gates
and
yet.
abused
I thought he was
underage
mentioned a
girls or
lot.
saw underage girls being paraded. They're
Wasn't he
all
on the
hidden.
Lolita Express?
They're all redacted. It's a little bit of a farce. They're inviting all the members of Congress to go to see the Department of Justice, quote unquote, unredacted files, but they've got all redacted files from the FBI. And it's not the fault of the Justice Department attorneys. They were just told upload things that Donald Trump's FBI had already scrubbed. It's a blatant violation of the Epstein Transparency Act, but it also asks a fundamental question. Who are they protecting? Why are they protecting these rich and powerful men, people I call part of the Epstein class? Why are we in a country where there is no elite accountability for people?
I mean, that probably should be rephrased. Why are the deep state actors in the FBI hiding information? But I mean, look, he raises a good question. All of these files are supposed to be fully unredacted for Congress. They're supposed to have full privy to everything, whether if it's redacted for the public or redacted for other reasons. As far as I understand, Congress is allowed to review everything unredacted.
People who do the most heinous things. You have in England the king.
Tell you, man, the federal government, they've been playing dirty games for many, many decades.
And possible prosecution of his own brother. You have in Norway the princess who no longer has support to be the queen. And yet in the United States of America, we have someone in the cabinet, Howard Lutnick, who is all over these Epstein files, who allegedly had business with Epstein after he was convicted of pedophilia, and he still is in the cabinet. We need to ask ourselves,
yeah, to be fair, he does have some explaining to do.
Are we in America going to have elite accountability? Are we going to call on rich and powerful people who broke the law or cavorted with a pedophile, a convicted pedophile? Are we going to call them to account? Are we going to have prosecutions for billionaires who went to this island?
I would certainly hope so.
Either raped underage girls or saw underage girls being raped and didn't say anything? Are we going to have investigations? I'll tell you what this is about. It's not just about the 1,200 survivors. It's about 2 tiers of justice in America. It's about people who can accumulate wealth and power and don't have to care about the rest of America. They have
not to mention the 300,000 children that are missing right now that cross the border under Biden. Income inequality is at a 60-year high. Workers' salaries are less than they have been for 75 years as a part of GDP. Somehow this country seems to be working for the rich and powerful, but it's not working for ordinary working class Americans. I say enough. Well, dude,
it's
the Democrat Party certainly ain't working for everyday
Americans. With accountability for the Epstein class.
Just look at Blue City.
Hold them in front of Congress.
Sky high expensive.
Those people who visited the island or did business with Epstein after he was a convicted pedophile. Investigate them. Prosecute them. And let's return to democratic accountability in the United States of America. Let's return to one system of justice in the United States of America. Let's return to a place where every American has a stake in this country.
Look, I mean, generally speaking, I agree with a lot of what he had to say, especially with holding the billionaires to account, being able to pull 6 of those names. How long did he say that they had? Like 2 hours or something that they were reviewing those, and they came up with those 6 names. And yeah, I agree with them. I think the FBI should reveal everything that's unredacted. And I don't know if they have a paper trail with regard to when everything was redacted. I'm sure it's probably been over the course of a number of years, because wasn't he first getting into trouble back in like the 1990s? And I'm sure the FBI was probably keeping records on it way back then underneath the Bill Clinton administration. So I'm sure they were probably redacting shit back then. And these 3 million pages, I'm sure that these 3 million pages, not all of them, but I'm sure that the paper trail starts way back in the 90s and it just progresses from there. So anyway, that's the latest. That's what we got from Rep. Khanna and also from Thomas Massie. I didn't catch anything from him speaking on the floor. I'll take a quick look and see if he's got anything from earlier today. He reposted Ro Khanna's right here, so I don't believe that he spoke on the House floor today. No, it doesn't look like he. I mean, if he did, he didn't post it on his account, which they usually do if they speak on the floor, especially with something that big with regard to Jeffrey Epstein. So that's the latest. And we'll move on to FBI Director Kash Patel, new images in the search for Nancy Guthrie. And first, before I get into this, I'm honestly not very familiar with this whole situation, so I decided to ask Grok. Short summary on the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. So Nancy Guthrie, she is the 84-year-old mother of NBC's Today Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, who I am familiar with, disappeared from her home in the Catalina foothills area near Tucson, Arizona. She was last seen on the evening of January 31st, 2026, after being dropped off at home following dinner with family. She failed to attend church services the next morning on February the 1st, leading family members to check on her and report her missing around noon that day. Authorities, including the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department, believe she was taken against her will in what appears to be an abduction. Key developments include her doorbell camera captured images of a masked armed individual tampering with it in the early hours of February 1st. Footage released publicly around February the 10th, which we're going to get to. Unverified ransom notes demands, including one for $6 million in Bitcoin, have surfaced, with deadlines passing without resolution. Some may be hoaxes. The FBI offers a $50,000 reward for information leading to a recovery or the arrest of those responsible. I mean, I would assume that Savannah Guthrie probably, or family probably has, I would assume they would have a fairly substantial reward out there. As of February 10th, she remains missing with no confirmed suspect identified, and the investigation is ongoing. So we have this from FBI Director Kash Patel. New images in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Over the last 8 days, the FBI and Pima County Sheriff's Department have been working closely with our private sector partners to continue to recover any images or video footage from Nancy Guthrie's home that may have been lost, corrupted, or inaccessible due to a variety of factors, including the removal of recording devices. The video was recovered from residual data located in back-end systems. Working with our partners as of this morning, law enforcement has uncovered these previously inaccessible new images showing an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance. Anyone with information, contact 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can visit tips.fbi.gov. And so these are the first set of images that they released to the public today. And it's this masked individual. Looks, I was reading the comments earlier. They seem to suggest that their eyebrows were drawn on, that they may have shaved off their eyebrows and actually drew on fake eyebrows. Not so sure. Somebody said maybe this is a female because it looks like they may have had like eyelash extensions put on. Somebody zoomed in the image down in the comments. I was taking a look at that. Hard to say. Maybe female, maybe not. I would probably lean toward maybe not, because that's not really a stature of a female, in my opinion. But anyway, that's what they're saying down in the comments. But we've got more. So FBI Director Kash Patel, additional recovered images from the same camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door of the morning of her disappearance, including 2 videos of the individual. And of course, 1-800-CALL-FBI. So we've got the first image, or well, I guess technically the 5th, and that'd be the 6th image. And we've got a video here. So let's play this video. Obviously trying to cover the camera. I don't know if those are leather gloves or if those are maybe latex gloves. Kind of hard to tell. What's he going to do? Pick up a rock? Oh no, pick up a piece of shrubbery. Okay, so, and here's the next one. Actually, here, let me try to do this. Let me see. I always have trouble trying to open these things up and get them to size up correctly. Yeah, obviously trying to cover up the camera. Which, dude, you're already on camera. I mean, what the hell? Okay. Well, it looks like that's it. About 13 seconds in total for that one. And we also have one more additional recovered footage from the same camera at the same timeline the morning of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. The footage is just before the original video shared with the individual approaching Nancy Guthrie's front door. And it's only 3 seconds. So I'll loop it once or twice. Trying to keep their head down. Okay, so yeah, it definitely looked like they had a flashlight in their mouth. I was about to comment on that. So yeah, I definitely don't think that's a woman. Definitely walking like a man, in my opinion. But who knows? Maybe they're just trying to fool the public. So anyway, that is the latest that we've got. Of course, there's theories. Apparently, this guy is the son-in-law. Like somebody seems to think that he might be the guy who did it. Which somebody else down there said that if it is him, maybe he shaved off his eyebrows and drew on fake eyebrows. Maybe not. Who knows? So apparently there's a few drops of blood. Apparently, not sure if it was from this individual or if it, God forbid, might have been from Nancy Guthrie. So anyway, so that's ongoing. So there's a lot of conspiracies, a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts, and so on down in the comments. So I'll repost this. There's a direct link to my profile in the description below to my X account. You don't have to be signed in to go on to X. You just click on it. It takes you right there. And so I'll have that reposted if you want to take a look at those. Or you can go to FBI Director Cash. You'll have it over there. And what was the time? February 10th at 12:52 p.m. So that's when you'll be able to view it. So I'm going to get into these oversight committee hearings. There is a lot to get through. But first here, I forgot about this. We've got Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She's going to give a brief comment on Nancy Guthrie. So here, let me play this first.
I apologize for the delay. I was once again with the president. He and I were both reviewing the newly released surveillance footage from FBI in the Savannah Guthrie case on just this heartbreaking situation with respect to her mother. The president encourages any American across the country with any knowledge of the suspect to please call the FBI, who continue to assist state and local authorities who are leading this investigation on the ground. And once again, I will reiterate that the prayers of this entire White House are with Savannah and her family at this time. And we hope this person is found soon and that her mother is brought home safely.
Yeah, hopefully. It's been a while, man. It's been over a week. So hopefully they are. Obviously, the FBI, they're investigating it. I'm sure they're the lead investigation agency on locating her. Hopefully they'll be able to find her. Okay, so we're going to get into these oversight committee hearings. There's a lot of them. There's quite a few that are like 5 minutes in length. So there's probably going to be a few here and there that I probably won't be able to play through in its entirety because I'm just, it's a weeknight. I only have so much time. Still got to make dinner after my episode. So I'm going to try to keep it as close to 2 hours as possible. So if I'm moving down the list and if it's just long video after long video, what I'll do at the very least, I'll repost them so you can go directly to my profile and view them there. Or you can go to any of these accounts. House Homeland GOP, they posted a whole bunch. Rapid Response 47's Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There's a whole bunch of government accounts that posted a lot of these from all of these various oversight committee hearings. So first, we're going to start with the one with Homeland Security. We're going to kick it off with this one. Witnesses detail for Rep. Michael Guest the consequences of a potential DHS shutdown. Quote, "It's going to make America significantly less safe," USCIS Director Ed Lowe said. "It will have a great impact, especially on the Homeland Security task forces and the men and women that are focused on the transnational crime and foreign terrorist organizations." And that quote was from Acting Director Todd Lyons with ICE. So we'll take a look.
While we may be there able to continue without our partners being paid and with them being furloughed, it's going to make America significantly less safe.
And Mr. Lyons.
Yes, sir. It will have a great impact, especially on the Homeland Security task forces and the men and women that are focused on the transnational crime and foreign terrorist organization.
Okay, so I'll read the posts as we go along, but if they end up dropping quotes such as this one from Lyons and from Scott, I'm going to skip those because we're just going to hear it all in the video anyway. There's no sense in hearing it twice. So from this one, Chairman Rep. Garbarino asks ICE's Todd Lyons and CBP's Rodney Scott about the training and curriculum for agents and officers. So let's give this a watch.
We're obviously concerned about officer safety
a little loud,
and have seen and heard about increasing threats and assaults against law enforcement. Director Lyons, are your officers trained regarding the difference between a protected protest and what is unlawfully
he's the chairman,
impeding
of course.
law enforcement?
Yes, sir. Deportation officers and special agents are taught at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. They are taught in defensive tactics, personal safety, but as well as laws to include First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, 10th, 14th Amendment. The officers are trained before they go out into the field, and then while they're in the field. They are specialized training in disturbance control and other special tactics.
Commissioner Scott, are your officers similarly trained?
Yes, they are. At FLETC, ongoing training in the field, and then anytime we're deploying them to the interior, they get updated law refresher training to include First Amendment and Fourth Amendment.
So I want to focus on the training here because with the historic investment in both ICE and CBP, there was a surge in hiring. I need to know, for these new hires, is the training different than what other agents and officers received before the hiring surge? Mr. Lyons, I'll let you start there.
No, sir, it's not. The training was never, the meat of the training was never removed. The timeline was. We took training from 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, to 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. In addition to that, training is different in the fact that before officers even go.
Well, see, we were misled from the mainstream news with regard to that because they said that the training was slashed from like 2 months down to like 10 weeks or 3 months down to 10 weeks, something like that. They said basically the training timeline was cut in half, seeming to suggest that they're only learning a portion of what they were learning previously. Now, I believe that they did cut down on some of the Spanish language courses that they were originally taking just for the sake of time because they had so many thousands of agents that they were trying to enter the field quickly. So I don't know if they're going to be taking those at a later date, but as he said, they're no longer doing it 5 days a week. They've upped it to 6 days a week. So it sounds like they're still getting the same amount of training. It's just in a shorter amount of time. They're getting more training in less time. So
to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, there's pre-employment training, which we never had before. And on top of that, we've adapted our on-the-job training program, which is much like a city or state field training officer program that once they are removed from the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy, have graduated, before they return to their field offices, they're assigned a field training officer, and that's continued on after that.
So let me get this. For ICE officers, the curriculum has stayed the same, but it's now a quicker training. The timeline has moved up?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, but the curriculum is the same?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner
Maybe I'm
Scott,
wrong on the Spanish, but I'm
can you
pretty
talk
sure
about
I read that somewhere.
If there's been a change in training since
and not from the mainstream news. I'm talking from
There's
government
been no
sources.
change in the training within Customs and Border Protection. Border Patrol agents go through a 117-day academy. The CBP officers go through a 103-day academy. That's actually training days. There's been no changes to that.
So
the only change that has been made is in our quarterly training. We've added scenarios based on what we most likely think they will encounter in the field. So we've actually added some of the protest type encounters as well.
Okay. All right. We're going to rock and roll on down to the next one. My top priority as chairman will always be protecting America. Okay. So I should have started with this, and that'd be a good time to mention that these are not in any order because there's so many of these. There's like 60 of these videos from all these different oversight committees that happened today. So obviously I didn't have enough time to put them in sequential order. I just shared the highlights from all of these different government accounts. These highlights being the ones that they felt were the most important to share with the public. Each one of these hearings, they could go on for several hours or even more in some cases. So we're not going to watch all of it, even though for some of these committee hearings, I do have links to the full committee hearings, and I'm going to repost all of those if you want to have a look at any of those. And we'll get the full opening statement from Chairman Garbarino. So let's take a listen.
I want to start by thanking our witnesses for appearing before the committee today. Today's hearing provides the American people the ability to hear directly from the leaders that enforce our nation's immigration laws. It is our imperative as representatives of the people to be a voice for the people. Transparency, communication, and accountability are keys to good government. This is why oversight is important. Informing Congress and the public is not casting accusations, nor is it a punishment. Congress has a duty to hear directly from the executive branch, a duty I take seriously. And the executive branch has a duty to keep us informed. While this hearing was long planned, we sit here today at an inflection point, an opportunity to assess and reinforce the integrity of immigration enforcement and to strengthen public trust. An opportunity to emphasize and underscore the Department of Homeland Security's no-fail mission as a whole. My top priority as chairman is, and will always be, protecting America while ensuring the safety of law enforcement. This is further important in the context of another potential shutdown of the department. Let me be clear. Shutting down DHS makes America less safe and negatively impacts thousands of federal employees like those at TSA and CISA.
Yeah, only 100%.
The Department of Homeland Security is the nation's largest federal law enforcement agency. It is this committee's duty, regardless of administration, to conduct oversight. We need to examine how DHS components are enforcing the law and ensure they have the resources in place to do work safely, effectively, and properly. Last year, we provided historic resources through reconciliation to strengthen public safety and support for the Trump administration's unprecedented efforts to secure the border. This was the single largest investment in the domestic Homeland Security mission. To succeed, we all need to work together seamlessly, and this committee is a partner in that effort. It is important to remember how we got here. For years, we witnessed a blanket refusal to enforce the law, wide open borders, catch and release policies, and uncontrolled mass migration. These policies undermined the rule of law and endangered all Americans.
Absolutely, they did.
Enforcing immigration law is not optional. The Trump administration's record on border security is irrefutable. Nationwide border encounters last December decreased 91% compared to 2023. Apprehensions between ports of entry last December decreased 86% compared to 2024. And we ended last year with 8 consecutive months of zero parole releases by Border Patrol. Further, thousands of criminal illegal aliens have been detained and deported. These actions make America safer and more secure. But the credibility of these successes is on the line. Right? We must take the temperature down and look at the record of enforcement actions through rational eyes. We've seen a significant increase in violent rhetoric and agitation.
Yeah, Democrats have no intention
We've
to
seen
do
a
that.
significant increase in attacks on federal law enforcement and in the number of threats facing them and their families.
All fed
This committee
to them by the
highlighted
mainstream
the
media
threat increases to law
and
enforcement
elected
at an
Democrats.
earlier hearing. We have seen state and local jurisdictions refuse to protect federal law enforcement officers. And obviously, we have now seen the deaths of 2 American citizens in Minnesota. This is all unacceptable and preventable.
Yeah, which, by the way, that would have never happened if they simply were allowed to apprehend these criminal illegal immigrants from jail instead of the city of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department just releasing them out into the streets so Immigration Customs Enforcement have to go out there and find them and then apprehend them. Then, of course, the freaking leftist cavalry shows up and their protests and their R whistles and raising all kinds of hell, and then it ends up leading to people getting hurt or even killed in 2 cases.
Safety and law enforcement and the communities they serve and protect must always come first. When officials or elected leaders rush to conclusions about law enforcement or their fellow Americans, public trust suffers. There must be complete and impartial investigation. I expect each of our witnesses to keep this committee fully informed as the investigations run their course, and I will ensure this happens. While these investigations are ongoing, officials and elected leaders cannot rush to judgment. I cannot put myself in the shoes of law enforcement, nor can I imagine what the families of Ms. Good and Mr. Preddy are enduring today. Public trust and public safety go hand in hand. We cannot have one without the other. I'm encouraged to see that President Trump sent Border Czar Tom Homan and Commissioner Scott to Minnesota to work with Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and other local leaders. I sincerely hope this dialogue continues. This should stand as an example of cooperation to anyone who continues to incentivize reckless behavior in our streets, unlawfully impede law enforcement operations, or disparage their fellow citizens. State and local officials should be partners, not obstacles when it comes to public safety.
Obviously.
And federal
we are the
officials
United
should keep
States
in
of
mind
America.
that this kind of partnership is a two-way street. Everyone should have the same goal of keeping America safe. Transparency and communication are needed now more than ever. The department's no-fail mission hangs in the balance. A rule-based order is not one-sided. Enforcing immigration law and defending all Americans' constitutional rights, including the rights to peacefully protest, bear arms, and privacy, are not mutually exclusive. I want to thank Secretary Noem for making these witnesses rapidly available, and again, thank the 3 of you for being here today.
All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. House Homeland GOP. Watch Rep. Mick Hall ask ICE's Ton Lyons whether border czar Tom Homan has improved the situation in Minnesota and increased coordination with state and local officials.
And what has been done since Mr. Homan came into the job? We now have targeted law enforcement operations. He is returning to the original mission of ICE. He is working with state and locals to do the crowd control. He is getting them to honor the ICE detainers. He is also getting the body cameras put on them.
Yes, he is.
And the roving patrols, in his words to me, should be done at the border, not in major cities. My question to you, Mr. Lyons, is Mr. Homan now, are his operations in Minneapolis now bringing the situation under control?
So we've seen a de-escalation.
Yeah, it's certainly better than it was.
The protests, while they still go on, have subsided, and ICE has been allowed to do their targeted, intelligence-driven enforcement operation. Just the other night, local authorities arrested 54 protesters at the local level where ICE officers did not have to be engaged in that.
Unbelievable. Absolutely crazy, man. 54 arrested. Keep it up, man. All right, House Republicans, the quiet part out loud. Democrat Sri Thanander demands ICE to be abolished, while Democrats run cover for violent criminals and drug traffickers. American families are paying the price.
And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE. ICE must be abolished.
Okay, well, they didn't throw in anything else in addition to that. So, I mean, I find that funny that they're holding up this board that says this is our fucking city. Yeah, you're damn right it is. It's all of our fucking city, our state, our United States, our country. It's not theirs, it's ours. And that's not only enforcement, that is all of us as American citizens, as law enforcement also are American citizens. House Republicans, deranged Democrats like Tim Walz and Jacob Frey are baselessly accusing ICE of invading Minneapolis. This just isn't true. Let's have a listen.
To stand down.
How did it make you feel as somebody who carries out the laws that this body has passed when you hear the mayor of Minneapolis say F ICE?
Oh, sir, I mean, from a morale standpoint, it hurts us to the fact that for decades, and I've worked since President Bush, ICE has always been in Minneapolis. We've always been in every major city and state. So it wasn't like it was a brand new thing. We've always been doing immigration enforcement. So that's demoralizing.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes without saying. Of course, they don't want people to believe that. They just want to keep people freaking useful idiots over on the left. House Republicans, which, by the way, I do have some from the Democrat side, too. It's not all going to be one-sided. Democrats in states like Colorado are prioritizing criminals over public safety. Former police officer Rep. Gabe Evans is sounding the alarm on dangerous sanctuary city policies. These laws shield dangerous drug cartels and actively endanger our law enforcement officers.
Director Lyons, is ICE's priority the apprehension and removal of criminal non-citizens rather than the broader population of illegally present individuals?
Yes, sir. ICE's continued focus is on the criminal aliens that are in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Democrats in my state in Colorado champion soft on crime sanctuary policies at the state level and in cities like Denver, which borders my district. These policies not only impede federal investigations that target cartels, gangbangers, entities like Tren de Aragua, MS-13, the Sinaloa
where do you
cartel,
think they're going to move to?
but they also endanger our communities by releasing dangerous criminals back into the streets who continue to traffic drugs, steal cars, intimidate families, and recruit children. In fact, fentanyl overdose rates in Denver are going up in 2025.
Oh, good grief.
It's common sense that when local or state police arrest an individual for a crime, those officers should be able to obtain basic information about the arrestee, and those state and local officers should then be allowed to share information with federal law enforcement to communicate threats, honor detainer requests, and work together to ensure national security and public safety. So
Jeez, man, that's unbelievable. Freaking. Well, anyway, it's kind of a coincidence because after I'm done with this show, I'm going to watch some South Park tonight. Okay, so here we go. Homeland Democrats. How many more moments of silence before we act? Renee Good and Alex Preddy, a mom and a nurse, were killed by ICE and CBP agents. This lawlessness cannot be rewarded with another dime.
In the video of the incident, a DHS agent can be seen cheering Mr. Preddy's death. Americans watched the video in horror. Yet once again, Secretary Noem
I would love to see that video because I haven't seen anything like that yet.
Made up a demonstrable
cheering
false story about Mr. Preety and blamed the victim for his own death. Mr. Preety was a law-abiding U.S. citizen and a VA nurse who dedicated his
By the way, he kicked out a taillight of a federal agent's vehicle a week before.
Mr. Chairman,
of course, they don't want to bring that
up. At our
up.
last month hearing, I asked for a moment of silence in the memory of Renee Good. Today, with great sadness about another American killed at the hands of DHS, I asked that the committee observe a moment of silence in honor of Alex Preety.
All right, which, by the way, she struck an agent with her vehicle because he was sent to the hospital and was diagnosed with internal bleeding into his abdomen, which was confirmed by the Department of Homeland Security. All right, Homeland Dems, 2 people have been killed by ICE, and they won't even say if one agent has been fired. That's the answer. ICE can kill you and nothing will happen. Look, I believe, well, at least from Homeland Security, they did say that the agents involved with those shootings have been reassigned, which took me by surprise because, as far as I understand, local law enforcement, whether if it's county sheriffs or if it's just a metro police department, if they use their service weapon while on duty, I'm pretty sure that they're put on leave while they investigate the situation. So that actually surprised me that they kept them on the job and they just simply reassigned them to another location. I mean, I can't say that I fully agree with that, but that's what they're doing. So this is from Aaron Rupar. Swalwell, how many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under their leadership? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I don't want to go with the back and forth with the quotes because we'll just hear it here.
How many ICE agents have been fired for their conduct under your leadership?
Sir, I can get you that data. I'll get that back to you.
Is it more than one?
I'm not going to speak about personnel actions, but I'll get you that data.
Can you tell us if at least, God, I hope at least one person has been fired for their conduct since these operations have begun? Are you telling us you can't even say one person's been fired?
Sir, I'm not going to talk about personnel actions, but we will get back to you.
But 2 people have been killed so far. Is that right? A nurse named Preddy and a mom named Good. 2 people have been killed so far.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, look, being fired, no, they shouldn't be fired because they haven't concluded their investigation yet. Okay, moving on to the next one. Home of the Brave, Rep. Thompson. I'm just trying to get a number of ICE agents who have cameras on their body as of today, which is hilarious because they've already repeatedly said, not only in the committee, but they've been repeating the fact that they are equipping all federal agents with body cameras as soon as possible. I'm sure they're probably already rolling them out as I speak.
I'm just trying to get the number of ICE agents who have cameras on their body as of today.
Approximately 3,000, sir.
Holy
3,000
shit, 3,000.
out of how many?
Out of approximately 13,000, sir, that are in the field.
So you have 3,000 out of 13,000 who have cameras.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. I mean, of course, Democrats don't want to hear that because they're all of a sudden backpedaling on their stance with agents carrying body cameras because they suddenly realize, oh yeah, that's right, we were pushing really heavily for body cameras back in the 2010s, and that backfired in many, many, many instances. Okay, so I got one more from Homeland Dems. ICE agents are detaining U.S. citizens even after being shown legitimate passports. Trump and Kristi Noem have made this a reality. They have legalized racial profiling. Okay, well, I'm assuming that they're going to show proof of this and not just the words that they use. And, of course, quotes back and forth. We'll just play it.
Young people asking me, what do I have to carry with me so I won't be deported? Is Mr. Lyons, carrying a passport, is that enough so they won't be detained or deported in my district?
Sir, an American citizen shouldn't carry or shouldn't feel the need to carry.
Let me tell you what some of your ICE agents have done. They pulled over a gentleman in a pickup truck, showed his passport, they threw it to the side, detained him. What do we have to do to show that we're American citizens?
Sir, no American citizen falls under Title VIII. No American citizen will be arrested for being an American citizen.
But you just said to my colleague that nobody has been fired because of violations of the law for
They haven't concluded any violations yet. They're still investigating.
Disciplinary actions, yet this is happening in my district. Mr. Lyons,
Look, if they match the description of somebody that they're looking after, they're going to detain them. That happens to American citizens all the time. Matter of fact, I was detained, not related to ICE, but this happened back in 2018. I was walking down my local trail just about a quarter mile from my house, and I was detained by 6-7 different county sheriffs, even had a helicopter flying over me, following me, because I matched the description of somebody that robbed a gas station about 1.5 miles down the street, and the suspect took off on the trail, also wearing a white tank top, exactly like I was wearing, and they stopped me, and I wasn't free to go. They had to question me. They took my driver's license. They took a picture of my driver's license. They sent it over to the sheriffs that were over at the gas station so they could show the clerk. Clerk eventually said, no, that's not him, and then they let me go. I mean, it happens all the time.
Very boring district. We work hard, mind our own business.
I mean, it doesn't happen to me all the
ICE
time.
in our
I'm just saying it
streets
happens
now.
to people all the time.
People are terrorized. American citizens. Number of cases of Americans being detained, being taken in, some being held for 5 days. Sir.
Well, yeah, dude, when you're breaking the law, you're obstructing ICE agents, you're obstructing federal agents, then yeah, you're going to be taken in for a few days. I mean, they're lucky that they're not being fully prosecuted and given up to 8 years in prison because they're committing felonies by doing that. Okay, let's go to rapid response. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons explains how the 14% doesn't include dangerous criminals such as drug traffickers, human traffickers, burglars, and etc.
Just to address your the numbers with the 14%, sir, that's 14% that are listed as violent criminal felonies. However, what's left out of that is the fact that what's left off that list.
Those 70% that don't have a traffic ticket and deported. How has that made our nation stronger?
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, more than 60% of every individual that is in ICE custody has a pending or a conviction on a criminal charge. Just to address your...
All right, well, there you go. At least 60%. And I've heard 70% from other sources, including individuals under Homeland Security. So some say 60, some say 70%. And from Rep. Eli Crane, is it safer for your officers to be able to go into a jail instead of having to go out and find illegal aliens on the street?
I don't think a lot of Americans really understand these sanctuary cities. Mr. Scott, Mr. Lyons, is it true that you would rather send your officers into a jail to get some of these illegal alien criminals? Is it safer for your agents and also the illegal alien criminal if your officers are able to go into a jail instead of having to go out and find them on the street? Mr. Lyons, I'll start with you.
Yes, sir, it would be. You wouldn't see the amount of law enforcement officers involved in immigration operations.
Not even close.
Right. How about you, Mr. Scott?
Yeah, to go into the jail, it would only require either one or two. I think they usually send two to go in there and apprehend them, as opposed to if they have to go out there into the field, they have to send arguably sometimes dozens.
100% agree with the director, and more, just as importantly, it would allow me to put more agents back on the border to prevent people from getting in here in the first place.
I don't think a lot of Americans...
Well, there you have it. Okay, rocking and rolling to the next one. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons' response to Rep. Swallows well that child. Okay, so it's a quote, so we'll hear his response.
Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
No.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Time. Mr. Lyons.
Oh, come on, man. They freaking cut him off. I think they're going to circle back around to this because that is absolutely what happened. As you can see, the car is literally frozen, and it's got salt all over it, too, because it's up in Minnesota. It's below freezing temperatures. And with regard to the 5-year-old, he and his father were in a vehicle when agents started pursuing him, or they tried to stop him, and he took off, and there was a vehicle chase. He stopped the vehicle, jumped out of the vehicle, took off running down the street, left his son behind. Just completely left him behind. So they had to take him into Immigration Customs custody, obviously, and they did end up catching up to the father, and then they reunited him with his son. I think it was a day or two later after he was processed. All right, so let's move on. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons. Let's see what this is. The context is ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable.
Under the leadership of President...
Okay, so this must be his opening statement. Like I said, I really wish I had time to have put all this in order. I just didn't have time. There's just way too much to go through today.
Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the men and women of ICE have been empowered to do exactly what they're trained to do: arrest and remove illegal aliens and criminals from our communities. We are enhancing public safety, securing our national security, and finally restoring integrity to the immigration system that had been allowed to collapse. We have supercharged our partnerships with state and local law enforcement, empowering officers around the country through the 287G program to help ICE identify and remove criminal aliens. Those partnerships have increased more than 900% since President Trump took office, and our communities are safer for it. I am also proud of our agency's unprecedented hiring campaign that led to hiring of more than 12,000 officers and special agents in less than a year, and more than 222,000 individuals submitted applications. This expansion of a well-trained and well-vetted workforce will help further ICE's abilities to execute President's and Secretary's bold agenda. Before discussing our broader operations, I must address the situation in Minnesota and the dangers that ICE agents and officers face nationwide. While the investigations remain ongoing, I'm encouraged that some Minnesota officials are finally signaling the willingness to cooperate with ICE. But let me be clear, promises are not enough. We need action. In the wake of the unprecedented border crisis of the previous administration, ICE has stepped into the breach to enforce the law. This commitment has a cost. We are facing the deadliest operating environment in our agency's history. In fiscal year 2025, death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%. One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials characterizing our officers as the Gestapo of secret police. The families of ICE personnel have been made to feel unsafe in their homes. I know this firsthand because my own family was targeted.
Yeah, and these people are actually getting a hold of their phone numbers and they're calling them, leaving voicemails of death threats, and I've played some of that on my show.
But let me send a message to anyone who thinks they can intimidate us. You will fail. Despite these perils, our officers continue to execute their mission with unwavering resolve, and we are only getting started. ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable. Since the beginning of the second Trump administration, we have achieved historic results. From January 20th, 2025 through January 20th, 2026, ICE has conducted nearly 379,000 arrests. Among those arrests were more than 7,000 suspected gang members and over 1,400 known as suspected terrorists. The president tasked us with mass deportation, and we are fulfilling that mandate. Thanks to the resources provided by this Congress, we are ramping up detention capabilities and removal flights daily. In the last year alone, we conducted over 475,000 removals. It's a brutal reality that criminal immigration today is organized by sophisticated, ruthless, transnational criminal organizations. These include cartels and transnational gangs President Trump has rightly designated as foreign terrorist organizations.
Yeah, thank God.
The only way to defeat them is to destroy their revenue. Within Homeland Security investigations, our special agents are delivering critical outcomes in the fight against transnational crime. We are seizing fentanyl before it kills our children and dismantling the networks that poison our communities. In FY25 alone, we seized more than 2.5 million pounds of narcotics, a 50% increase from the previous year and a critical blow to transnational organization groups everywhere. HSI criminal arrests are at the highest point in history.
Holy cow, man. 2.5 million pounds of narcotics. That is insane. That is so much drugs. Arguably, that's probably 2.5 million that was getting in on an annual basis under the Biden administration. All right, CBP. So I'm going to read some from Customs and Border Protection, starting with this one. In today's hearing, CBP Commissioner speaks to the difficulties that a government shutdown would create for officers and agents working to make America safe.
It's not important that we pay the men and women who serve under your command.
It's critically important.
And in a government shutdown, the bills don't stop, do they not? The bills continue to accrue.
Correct.
And the deployment of technology ceases in many cases, and America becomes less safe. Would you agree with that statement?
I would agree America becomes less safe.
It's not important that...
Yeah, well, it absolutely would become less safe. All right, historic security did not happen by accident. It's a result of the comprehensive approach to border security.
But this progress did not happen by accident. It's a result of a comprehensive approach to border security.
Opening statement.
We ended catch and release, we prioritized detention and removal authorities, and we sent a clear message that illegal entry into the United States will not be tolerated. And the numbers speak for themselves. We have achieved record low illegal crossings between ports of entry. Border Patrol apprehensions along the southwest border totaled over 90,000 for the entire year. That's a number that used to represent a single month under the Biden administration.
Not even
Daily
a month.
encounters have dropped by 95%, averaging about 250 per day, compared to 5,000 a day during the Biden administration. Our increased enforcement also resulted in the seizure of over 617,000 pounds of illicit narcotics. That's nationwide, an 8% increase over the prior year. This included nearly 11,000 pounds of fentanyl and more than 186,000 pounds of methamphetamines. This is what having a secure border looks like.
Absolutely.
None of this would have been possible, though, without the vision and leadership of President Trump and the historic investments made in border security. The One Big Beautiful Bill, a $65 billion investment, is enabling CBP to modernize border infrastructure, deploy additional advanced technology, and to grow our workforce. Since January 2025, CBP is building smart wall at record levels. We're installing high-tech attributes where the Biden administration had shut it off. We're installing water barriers along the Rio Grande River, which denies criminals access to these routes. But that is not all. We're investing in technology at our ports of entry, non-intrusive inspection equipment, biometrics, and advanced surveillance to improve our ability to know what's coming into this country, the land, air, and sea, at and between the ports of entry. CBP's workforce is without a doubt the greatest asset that we have. The One Big Beautiful Bill is investing historic amounts of money in recruitment, hiring, and retention and training to ensure that we have the most highly qualified and capable law enforcement professionals securing our border.
Well, you might remember back during the Biden administration that in the state of Texas, in certain parts of the border, it was getting so overflooded with illegal immigrants just crossing over that the state of Texas was putting up shipping containers. They put these long lines, I think for miles. They put up like stacks of shipping containers that were being used as a temporary barrier. And the Biden administration ordered the removal of them. And they sent in trucks to remove all of those shipping containers. It's absolutely insane. All right, so due to the collaboration across all federal departments, the resultant record low encounters, CBP has been able to surge resources to support ICE's targeted enforcement operations across the country. Let's take a look.
Due to the collaboration across all federal departments, the resultant record low encounters, CBP has been able to surge resources to support ICE's targeted enforcement operations across the nation. CBP is integrated with ICE and other partners to identify and remove dangerous criminals and others who remain in the country illegally. As recent events have demonstrated, though, our officers and agents are increasingly facing an unprecedented level of aggressive interference and intimidation when executing the laws that you have asked them to enforce. These attacks on federal law enforcement personnel are coordinated and well-funded. This is not peaceful protest. No law enforcement officer should be put at personal risk simply for doing the job that we have asked them to do. I thank you for your continued support of CBP's mission, and I look forward to answering your questions today.
Okay, so that was probably all of his opener. All right, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So we've got quite a few of these. When Liam's father abandoned him in the freezing Minnesota cold, our officers took care of the young boy. So it sounds like we'll get some more context into that.
As an anecdote, Mr. Lyons, was Liam used as bait by your agency?
No, sir. Actually, law enforcement officers took care of the child after the father abandoned him at a...
Walk us through what that means.
So, sir, the individual that was driving that vehicle with Liam was in fled from the scene from the officers. He was obviously upset. We comforted him. The officers actually placed him in one of our vehicles, played his favorite song, favorite music. Then they took him to McDonald's.
You all got him McDonald's. So you all did not abduct him. You did not use him as bait. Any characterization of that is a lie. And it has been repeated over and over by the Democrats to frame your agency.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what they were doing. I was really quiet. I had to boost the volume a little bit. Sanctuary cities and states would rather release a violent criminal alien back into their communities than honor our immigration detainers.
Just 30 hours ago, an illegal alien arrested for stabbing an American in the back. He was charged with attempted murder. He pled to a lesser offense. The feds wanted him, sought a detainer, and then rather than hold him for your agent's pickup, he was released back into the streets of Maryland. That is not an unusual action from local, hostile law enforcement, is it, Mr. Lyons?
No, sir, that's what we face every day.
So we've heard the Democrats complain that we're not getting the worst of the worst, but their sanctuary jurisdictions that control roughly 40% of this country's population will actively release sex predators, drug dealers, violent offenders, rather
100%.
than hand them over to you for deportation. And these are people who are already in custody. Am I correct, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir. The individuals were already deemed a public safety threat by local or state law enforcement.
And then when they get a federal detainer, they will release them on the street rather than turn them over for deportation.
Yes, sir.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, they will. These people are fucking evil, man. They're so evil. When states work with ICE, the way states like Tennessee, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, or Oklahoma do, dangerous criminal aliens are more effectively identified, detained, and removed from the community without issue.
Director Lyons, contrast ICE's experience in Minneapolis with other cities around the country, including Memphis and others, that have agreements to work with ICE. What can successful partnerships with local law enforcement and other partners look like?
Sir, thank you. I would say that Memphis is a prime example, and I have to give credit to the U.S. Marshal Service that's leading that operation. Homeland Security investigation agents are out there every day with the men and women of Tennessee Highway Patrol, Memphis Police Department, and the reduction in crime has been significant. But if you look across the country, almost in every state, we do have cooperative jurisdictions. If you look at Texas, we have outstanding cooperation. You don't see any riots or anything like that. You see side-by-side law enforcement working together as it would be. If you look at the state of Florida, state of Oklahoma, state of Louisiana, all across the nation, we do have that. And what it is public safety.
Yeah, it's called cooperation. It's called being united. The consequences of not enforcing federal immigration law, terrorists, murderers, child abusers, gang members, and more continue to wreak havoc across America. ICE will continue to hold the line and enforce federal immigration laws enacted by Congress.
What are the consequences of not enforcing federal immigration laws?
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, if you look at the amount of, as I said earlier, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we removed from the country, we arrested 1,477 this year and removed 1,480. Just that impact alone, along with the 7,800 gang members, makes a significant impact on public safety and national security.
Thank you.
All right, let me adjust the volume. That way I don't blow out any eardrums with the next one. So it's probably going to be louder. Okay, the photos of criminal aliens behind Rep. Breaching are just a few of the criminal aliens we've taken off Oklahoma streets and out of Oklahoma's neighborhoods. And the murderers, child abusers, and more removed from America to keep Americans safe.
Mr. Chairman, thank you to the witnesses. I want to start with a display over my shoulders. And this is something that is not specific only to Oklahoma. This is something that every member of this committee, if you will go to the DHS website, every constituent of every member of Congress, if you're curious of really the dark days, I want you to go to the DHS website and I want you to look at those not far from where you live, moms and dads, the arrest of illegal aliens who were preying on minors.
Yeah, I think it's dhs.wow.gov, I think. Or it might be the other way. Yeah, it might be the other one. Or it might be on ICE's website. Yeah, here it is. Okay, dhs.gov/worst of the worst. This is the website that he's talking about. And you can search by the country of origin. You can search by the state you're in. Also the search terms. And let me see what it's up to now. I mean, they've got thousands on this list, or at least they did. Yeah, there's 2,084 pages. Each one, what is it, 12 per page? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah, there's 12 per page. So, I mean, you can do the math. There's like 25,000 names on this already. And this isn't the database of those that of the criminal illegals that they've arrested. These are just the ones that they consider the worst of the worst. They have a whole nother database of the criminal illegals that they've arrested. And the last time that I checked, it was up to like 40,000, maybe 50,000 names. That's all publicly, it's public database. You can go through and search through all of these. And again, you can separate it by your state and enter in specific search terms and so on.
Just because of a really intentional act by Kate Bryan on my staff to go a couple of weeks ago and look just in eastern Oklahoma, on the right side of me here, just in eastern Oklahoma, I represent almost all the entirety of eastern Oklahoma. These are just the individuals, heinous acts, to include those with children. And yet I want to read you in a wider, to my left over here, what is happening in the state of Oklahoma. This person was picked up. Angel Nick, sexual exploitation of a minor. Renton Andrew, molestation of a minor. Chan Truding, child fondling. Feliciano Garcia, enticement of a minor. Caetano Lopez, statutory rape. Erasmo Avila, rape and lewd acts with a minor. So for everyone who is in short-term memory, it's the way things operate in the court of public opinion, everyone is looking and you're forgetting the conversations you were having 2 and 3 years ago. If you had teenage kiddos wanting to go outside of your home and you knew that they were going to go to Dallas, Texas, or some city, and you knew that you had to have a conversation with them with what was happening, the 15 million you knew were in the country illegally, that you had no idea what they would be doing, who would they be preying upon. And moms and dads, don't you feel just a little bit safer if we're going to be gut level honest? That's the realization of what the generational opportunity this administration has afforded this country. It's the ability to feel safe over the madness of opening the border for that 4-year period that allowed 15 million people. You don't know where they came from. You don't know their background. You don't know their history. And this that is occurring right now is designed to make sure we have law and order in this country. If you do not have law and order, you don't have prosperity.
Well, and also he's pointing out the fact that these are all the criminal illegals that they had gathered up in Oklahoma, where they are working with ICE and Border Protection. And then you've got the sanctuary cities where the same amount of these people, I would argue that there's probably 10 times the number of violent criminal illegals in those cities because they're sanctuary cities. So, of course, they're going to migrate up to those sanctuary cities where they know that if and when they get arrested, they're going to be let out onto the streets. And the thing is, with regard to the Democrats, they don't, just too many Democrats don't have kids. So they don't really care about what he's talking about because they engage in abortion. They don't raise their kids, they kill them.
So to all those who are second-guessing the reactionary moments, to the law enforcement who have to respond in real time, the quarterback who's questioned Monday morning because he's facing a 300-pound defensive lineman, it's easy to do that. But law enforcement walks out of their home every day and is faced with life or death questions. And we have to understand they are the ones who are affording us the opportunity for our children to feel safe against these that are in your backyard. It's not just in the north. It's not just in Minneapolis. It's not just in Minnesota. They're in every state in the country. Go to the Department of Homeland Security website and Google your area and look at who's being picked up in your backyard. That's how we recenter this conversation to truth. I want your children protected. I am grateful for this president who wants your children protected and an administration.
Yeah, amen, man. U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement. Sanctuary states and cities are only a sanctuary for criminal aliens.
Minneapolis in particular is a sanctuary city. What does that mean? That means that it's a magnet for illegal. They're protected under the current situation because state and locals will not cooperate with federal law enforcement. In fact, Mr. Lyons, is it not true that they were not honoring ICE detainers that were put on dangerous felons in prison so that you could remove them from the United States?
That is correct, sir. The detainees were not honored at the local level.
Unbelievable. And ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable. It sounds like an opening statement, but it's 30 seconds, so I'll just let it play.
Despite these perils, our officers continue to execute their mission with unwavering resolve.
Although I think we already heard this.
We are only getting started. ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable.
Yeah, I believe we already heard that. So MS-13 gang members are known or suspected terrorists, murderers, child pedos. Under the leadership of President Trump and Secretary Noem, the men and women of ICE have been empowered to do exactly what they were trained to do, arrest and remove criminal aliens and criminals from our communities. I believe that we already heard this also.
Under the leadership of President Trump.
Holy cow, that was loud. See, I'm telling you, man, some of these are way too quiet. Others are way too freaking loud.
And DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the men and women of ICE have been empowered to do exactly what they're trained to do, arrest and remove illegal aliens and criminals from our communities.
Okay, yeah, I believe we did hear that also. Looks like another one, same thing, opening statement, because this is a different account. This is Homeland Security, whereas the last ones we were watching are from ICE and other government accounts. Looks like the same thing. All right, so it looks like this might be a new one. The same critics attacking us today for enforcing the law were silent for 4 years as open borders empower cartels to engage in industrial-scale human trafficking, and as Americans were victimized by illegal immigrants who should not have been here to begin with.
Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Yeah, it's just these loaded, stupid questions from these Democrats. Just plain stupid games, trying to win some stupid prizes. House Administrator Committee, GOP. All right, so that's going to be it for DHS and ICE, and we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be the Committee on House Administration, and it is titled Make Elections Great Again, How to Restore Trust and Integrity in Federal Elections. And we'll start with Russell Noble's opening statement. He is the attorney at Judicial Watch, civil and voting rights lawyer. So we'll hear him give his opener.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Russell Nobill. I am an election integrity lawyer at Judicial Watch. The core point of my testimony is simple. Public confidence in integrity of elections is declining. The decline is not driven by lack of ballot access, but rather inadequate and lax enforcement of basic election integrity safeguards. The data tells a clear story. Voter registration and turnout continue to go higher, and minority ballot access is at or near record levels. Historical racial disparities supporting the need to promote ballot access have largely been eliminated. At the same time, the public strongly supports common sense election integrity measures. Large majorities support voter ID and uniform election deadlines. They support proof of citizenship requirements and clean registration lists. Yet despite this consensus, many states have moved to undermine election integrity. One of the most troubling shifts has been the expansion of universal mail voting, which sends unsolicited ballots automatically to all voters regardless of eligibility. My written testimony describes how progressive politicians proposed this very system 100 years ago. It was a bad idea then, it remains a bad idea. No mature democracy would adopt such an insecure voting system. Among other ills, it weakens chain of custody protections, it increases the risk of coercion, and brings that risk of coercion to people's houses, a real risk for vulnerable voters. It risks third-party interference and administrative error. It erodes public trust in elections. Universal mail voting is bad policy in any context, but it's particularly bad when combined with inaccurate voter registration lists. Not long ago, the Supreme Court found that 24 million registrations, about 1 in 8 in the United States, are invalid or inaccurate.
Good grief,
and 2.75 million people were registered in multiple states. Dirty lists have long been the gateway for other election mischief. Take California, who Judicial Watch is suing right now on behalf of the Libertarian Party. It has both universal mail voting and dirty registration lists. Our own internal analysis found that 21 counties with approximately 6 million voters removed a combined 11 voters over 2 years for change of address.
What?
That's 11 voters removed from a group of 6 million.
Yeah, and what California lost like 300,000 residents last year, just last year alone.
11 over 2 years. The NVRA imposes modest list maintenance duties on states, and it guarantees organizations like Judicial Watch access to list maintenance records so we can verify compliance with federal law. Many states fail under both federal obligations. Many do not conduct meaningful list maintenance, and when we simply ask them for the records to verify, as we're allowed to under federal law, they refuse, delay, or claim the records do not exist. Now they're not even giving the records to the Department of Justice, where I formerly worked, and would ordinarily ask for these records from 2004 to 2010. Those refusals are not just technical oversights. They defeat transparency, they prevent public oversight, and undermine public confidence in the election administration.
Know what they're hiding.
Last year, Judicial Watch reported that our enforcement efforts over the years have resulted in more than 5 million ineligible registrations being removed nationwide.
Wow.
5 million.
5 million.
Despite our success, we've barely moved the needle. Just last month, Oregon's new Secretary of State announced that they needed to remove 800,000 inactive voters in response to our lawsuit. The evidence shows that Oregon hasn't removed voters since 2017. While Oregon's announcement is progress, it illustrates just how pervasive state noncompliance has become. We have other suits pending. Finally, I address the recent trends where states are allowing ballots to arrive days and weeks after Election Day.
Yeah.
For the last 5 years, my colleagues and I have sued several states challenging this practice, and last month the Supreme Court ruled in our favor in the first case in which we represent Congressman Michael Boss in his suit against Illinois. It took 4 years to get a federal court to say that we could sue, and finally the Supreme Court agreed. The regressive practice of allowing ballots to roll in for days and weeks after Election Day is chiefly responsible for creating the Banana Republic-style confusion that follow American elections today. Judicial Watch's client, Libertarian Party of Mississippi, along with the RNC, successfully sued Mississippi in 2024 over this same practice. We won, and then yesterday we filed our brief with the Supreme Court to defend our win. The Supreme Court will hear that case on March 23rd. Our brief is attached in the record. 76% of the public support it. History explains why election integrity safeguards exist. They're not adopted by accident, and they're not racist. Thank you for inviting me to testify today. I look forward to your questions.
Oh my God, dude, what an opener. That is absolute insanity. It just makes you wonder if everything was crystal clean across the board with regard to the voting system. I mean, for all we know, Trump probably would have won every single state, for all we know. I mean, just because these blue states, they don't ever remove anybody from their ballot list. People who move out of the state, they just keep them on there. And then, of course, if they blanket ballot the entire state, as they're doing, and if those individuals don't live in that state anymore, guess what's going to show up to their old address? And then you've got a lot of these blue states, which they allow for ballot harvesting, so people can go door to door and collect ballots. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put two and two together. All right, so here we go. Brian Steele, Rep. McGriffith, Rep. McGriffith debunks Democrat arguments about common sense election reforms. House Administrator Committee, GOP. Rep. McGriffith questions the witness.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleagues. All American citizens should have the right to vote.
They're shouting in this committee.
I do, however, disagree that the desire to have all Americans being able to vote has been bipartisan in the past. Having been a child during the Jim Crow era, I can assure you that the Make Elections Great Again bill is not Jim Crow. But let's talk about Jim Crow in Virginia. In 1902, the Virginia Constitution was rewritten by Democrats. They didn't take it to the people to vote on it. They just did it assembled in Richmond. And the concept was, everybody will recall, to disenfranchise African Americans. But what people don't recall is it was also to disenfranchise poor, white, Republican voters in the western part of the state, the very part of the state that I now have the great pleasure and proud to represent. It was done to take them out of the voting rolls too, because the Republican populist coalition was challenging the dominant Democrats in the state. And the Democrat Party did that, led by E. Carter Glass of Lynchburg, Virginia. And it would take some time to break that coalition up. And you know what it was, Mr. Chairman? It was the federal government interfering, according to all the Democrat politicians of the time, interfering in the states and telling them, you can't continue to run your elections with poll taxes, with complex subjective registration processes, and having, quote unquote, an understanding clause, making sure that people understood what was going on in the election, that broke that up in the mid-'60s. And guess what followed that? The election of the first Republican governor since Reconstruction in 1969. I participated in that election, not as a voter, but as somebody working out there in the hustings. Yeah, I was a weird kid. And I remember the debate between the Mountain Valley Republicans and the Democrats who controlled everything and who didn't want blacks and poor whites from the western part of the state actively participating. So I assure you, Mr. Chairman, your bill is not Jim Crow.
They want to shackle your mind.
I've got to tell you, it was an interesting time to live in, and I'm glad it's passed. And what we want to do is to make sure American citizens can vote. Mr. Noble, from your experience as an attorney, do you believe that our current penalties for election fraud sufficiently deter bad actors?
No, and fraud's been going on for 200 years in American elections, and I submitted in my record 2 written books, one by the former chairman of this committee that documented countless frauds in the 19th century, another book that documented countless frauds in the 20th century. So when you look at fraud, you can't...
You could probably make the argument that if fraud had been weeded out of our system since day one, we might not even have a Democrat Party today.
Look at it in the terms of last week or last year, 2 years. I mean, it's a competition. People are cheating.
Yeah. So you're saying we should enhance the law?
Yes.
And you think that the Make Elections Great Again will help us do that?
Yes.
I do too. Mr. Noble, in your experience, what have been some of your concerns raised with the practice of allowing third-party operatives to collect and submit ballots to polling centers, i.e. ballot harvesting?
Well, that's why we invented the Australian ballot, so people wouldn't be harassed, and so they would monitor people's votes. People could go in and vote privately in a secure location where they wouldn't be harassed. And so this sort of advent of all-mail balloting and ballot chasing programs or ballot harvesting programs basically returned us to the bad days of old in the 19th century, where poor whites and the few minorities that were allowed to vote were chased and harassed so they could watch their votes. And we invented the Australian ballot so people would stop getting paid to vote, right? And that brought a lot of the protections we enjoy right now.
In my district, that wasn't just paying them with cash. Sometimes it'd be a bottle of whiskey.
Or a club against the head.
Right. Yeah, if you don't. Yeah.
You believe the Make Elections Great Again Act will prohibit ballot harvesting nationwide?
Yeah, it'll be a great improvement.
Do you think that makes our system
Hallelujah.
cleaner and more open for American citizens, including African Americans and poor whites in the mountains of Virginia?
Yes, people should be allowed to vote in secure locations away from all the harassment that they might get at home.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, but then Democrats won't win anymore. But look, to be like, in all honesty, a two-party system is, of course, it's healthy for our country, as long as we remain fundamentally united. Which, of course, Democrats, they're trying to drive a wedge in between literally everything these days. Chairman Rep. Brian Steele, he gives his opener for today's hearing. Oh, good grief, that is extremely quiet. All right, let me see if I can adjust that.
State's Constitution grants the power to regulate the time, place, and manner of federal elections. However, the Constitution also gives Congress the power to make or alter those regulations at any time. Federal election law was last updated in 2009, and the years since, voter confidence has dropped. The Biden administration's failed immigration policies has resulted in over 10 million illegal aliens pouring into our country during that time period. Some states send every registered voter a ballot. 14 states don't require photo identification. This is why Congress must implement common sense election integrity reforms. And that's why I've introduced the Make Elections Great Again Act, or the MEGA Act. Here's the top line. Elections should end on Election Day. You should need a photo identification.
Now, hold on. Just full stop. They definitely should not be calling it the MAGA Act. Absolutely should not, because that is not going to go well, especially in the mainstream media. It just gives them an opener to attach a whole bunch of ridiculous labels to it where there really shouldn't be, or the Make Elections Great Again Act. I think that messaging is very poorly conceived, in my opinion.
Identification to cast a ballot. You must be a citizen of the United States of America to vote in a federal election. We need audible paper ballots, and we shouldn't be sending ballots to people that don't request them. These reforms alone will improve voter confidence, strengthen election integrity, and continue to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. But this is a product of years of work and collaboration. We've sought feedback from state and local election officials. We continue that dialogue here today. Delays in election results weaken voter confidence. Thousands of ballots can't arrive days after Election Day, which is exactly what I witnessed
against the law,
when I was
isn't
at
it?
Los Angeles County Central
They have to be
Count
fully counted
days
on the
after
day of.
the November 2024 election. Non-citizens on voter rolls weaken voter confidence. We cannot allow someone to say that they're a citizen simply by registering to vote by simply checking a box without verification. For example, that's exactly what Ian Roberts, an illegal alien, did when he registered to vote in the state of Maryland. Stories like this.
Well, how many of these deep Democrat areas where they've got they've got the DMV or wherever it is that they're registering them for, whether if it's an ID, wherever it is that they're getting their voter registration, they probably tell them to check that box, or they point to it and say, "Don't forget this," just alluding to it that the box is there and you should probably check it.
America's trust in our elections. We're here to fix that. Today, you may hear Democrats make outlandish claims about these common sense policies. Former Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer recently called these proposals Jim Crow 2.0.
Laughable.
Leader Jeffries repeatedly referred to these policies
That's rich coming
as
from a
voter
Democrat.
suppression. Those statements are false, and they insult
retarded.
the intelligence of the American people. They're also the exact same arguments that were made when Georgia passed their election integrity law in 2021. As you may recall, major corporations took out full-page ads in newspapers decrying the bill. Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game out of Atlanta. President Biden called the Georgia law, you guessed it, Jim Crow 2.0.
Of course.
Stacey Abrams, the twice-failed Georgia gubernatorial candidate, never hesitated to call it voter suppression. They were wrong then, as Democrats are wrong now. But in Georgia, the law passed. Georgia has held 2 statewide elections since. What does this tell us? We can look at the empirical data, and the data tells a far different story than the Democrats would like it to do.
Well, and that is also amazing that they can compare the data from, let's say, 2020 to the data from 2024 and see the stark difference in voter turnout, for example.
Let's take a minute and review what's taken place in Georgia. Without objection, I'd like to insert 3 news articles to the record. Voting is surging in Georgia despite controversial new election law from the Washington Post. Yes, the Washington Post.
Well,
Axios, record-breaking early voting in Georgia Senate runoff. And Valdosta Today, University of Georgia post-election poll dispels voter suppression myth. All entered into the record. I encourage you to read them. The independent Georgia survey referenced in the last article, I think, is really important to explore further. The University of Georgia did a large and substantive review of the Georgia 2022 general election after the election integrity legislation was passed. 95% of voters reported excellent or good in their experience of the election. And that positive impression was across all key demographic groups. And that's important because notably 0% of blacks reported a poor or negative experience in the state of Georgia statistically. Well, additionally, 75% of voters waited less than 10 minutes in line to cast a ballot.
Yeah, and I bet they didn't go days or even weeks having to recount and recount and
What
recount.
What does all this mean? The common sense reforms House Republicans are proposing today will ensure it remains easy to vote, but hard to cheat. Exactly. Elections should end on Election Day. You need a photo ID to cast a ballot.
Yep.
You need to be a citizen to vote. You need an audible paper trail, and you shouldn't mail a ballot to people that don't request them. These are common sense. That's why they're popular. It's time we make them standard in American elections. Today, we have an opportunity to have this conversation and to move forward on real and substantive election integrity in the United States.
Yeah, now actually, since he brought that up, let me share a post from one of the Democrats that I came across. Yeah, here it is from Rep. Mark Pocan. There seems to be some confusion about the Save America Act. If it becomes law, you will not be able to vote with your driver's license alone. You'll need a passport, which more than half of Americans don't have and costs at least $130, or a birth certificate plus your photo ID with matching names, which nearly 70 million married women lack. Well, it sounds to me like with regard to the birth certificate that you should probably get it updated because, you know, when you get married, that tends to be one of those items that you have to check off the list when you get married and you're changing your name, you get your birth certificate updated, which I'm sure many do. Look, the 70 million, not even sure if that's a real number or not. I'm sure that there's probably quite a few people that haven't updated it. But still, if that's what people need to do in order to get our elections fortified and secure, then absolutely should be doing that. And plus, it doesn't cost any money to get your birth certificate adjusted, I don't think. Military service papers, not a military ID alone with sensitive information. I'm voting no. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because, look, like you should have all of your ID and all of your documentation updated regardless of whether if you're going to go vote or not. All right, it looks like we got one more from this committee hearing. It's from the chairman, so we might have already heard this because they're from two separate accounts, and this is from his account. So,
former Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer recently called these
shit,
proposals Jim Crow 2.0. Leader Jeffries repeatedly referred to these policies as voter suppression.
Okay, well, that was a complete, pointless act and like blowing out my freaking eardrums. My apologies. It's freaking sound, man. It's all over the place. All right, I'm going to keep that cranked down. That threw me off because I went and searched for that post. Had I not done that, I would have noticed my volume. So anyway, so this is going to be the entire hearing. It's going to be right here on YouTube. And of course, I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just showing you that it's here. At least here on YouTube, they have it as an hour and 36-minute video. I'll repost this. And here, let me go ahead and open this so I can Yeah, so I'll just link this directly below in the description since it's already here on YouTube. So I'll make sure that gets included below if you want to take a look at that, the hearing on our election security. And we'll move on to financial services. GOP Watch Chairman Rep. French Hill delivers an opening remarks at today's full committee hearing. And then, of course, we've got the long-winded quote, so we're just going to give this a play. Oh, and by the way, this committee hearing, it's titled Priced Out of the American Dream, Understanding the Policies Behind Rising Costs of Housing and Borrowing.
The American dream has long been a symbol of opportunity, promising economic freedom, home ownership, and a better future through hard work. However, for many American families today, rising costs, housing supply shortages are making those milestones increasingly difficult to achieve.
Extremely
and hence
difficult.
The title of today's hearing, Priced
Unless, of
Out
course, you already have
of the
a house.
American Dream, reflecting that reality for many. Affordability has become a serious challenge after years of harmful Biden-era policies marked by reckless spending and inflation reaching 40-year highs, leaving households to absorb the consequences of those higher prices and increased borrowing costs. In 2024, we hit an all-time high for the cost of building a single-family home, and it's only expected to grow. Short rates set to fight persistent inflation are driving up
Especially if
mortgage
interest rates
payments,
come
and
down.
borrowing has
That's
become
gonna make
more
it worse.
expensive. These pressures are squeezing household budgets and limiting opportunity. As the 2025 Financial Stability Oversight Committee annual report
What
makes
the hell's
clear,
Maxine Waters doing here?
economic
It's
growth
hilarious.
is essential to financial stability. In a growing economy, rising
on your left.
incomes make debt more manageable, standards of living improve, and the financial system remains stable and resilient. Since the start of President Trump's second term, we've seen renewed economic momentum driven by pro-growth policies and a clear regulatory framework. Under the president's leadership, the economy is back on track, reversing the damage left by the previous administration and restoring confidence in our financial system.
In some ways.
This stands in sharp contrast to the warnings
Middle class is still hurting a
predicted
lot,
by
though.
many across the aisle just before the president's inauguration. In 2024, Moody Analytics predicted that a Republican-controlled government would lead to 3.5% inflation, 5% unemployment, a recession, and a budget deficit in excess of 6% of GDP. Those warnings were echoed repeatedly by Democrats
Well, of course
who
they
claimed
were.
that Republicans would derail the economy.
Yeah,
The
Moody's
data
ain't
has
biased at all now, are
conclusively
they?
disproven those assertions. Inflation came
In
in
year
nearly
one.
a full percentage point below forecast. Unemployment did not exceed 4.5%. No
Nope.
recession materialized. GDP growth
Well,
is on
I don't
track
know about
for
all
3
that.
consecutive quarters above 3%.
I'd say the middle class is in a
and the
recession.
budget
I think we
deficit
have been
is
for like
projected
5
to fall
years.
to 5.4% of GDP. While the broader economy has improved, affordability challenges that I outlined remain for many households. That's why Republicans in this committee continue to introduce legislation that address this challenge head on.
Look, and it's not just housing. I mean, if you check the prices of new cars, even used cars these days, absolutely ridiculously expensive.
We have direct solutions to improve the cost of living for all Americans. Throughout the 119th Congress, we've unveiled legislative proposals that work to reinvigorate our banking system, expand access to credit, and remove unnecessary regulatory burdens. Recently, I introduced the Main Street Capital Access Act with Subcommittee for Financial Institutions Chairman Andy Barr to revitalize local bank formation and right-size regulations so that banks can do what they do best, lending to local businesses and communities.
Yeah, keeping us all in debt.
Late last year, Subcommittee on Housing and Insurance Chair Mike Flood and I introduced, and the committee advanced with the support of Ranking Member Waters, Mr. Cleaver, the Housing for the 21st Century Act, which reduced regulatory barriers and making building homes and apartments that are making that difficult. And last night, the House advanced that bill by a vote of 390 votes. In December, the House also overwhelmingly passed Subcommittee Capital Markets Chair Ann Wagner's Invest Act with strong bipartisan votes of over 300 votes. This legislation will strengthen our capital markets, promote capital formation, and ensure that America's markets remain a global leader. President Trump has been clear about the importance of addressing the cost of living for all American families, and these bills reflect our shared commitment. Through our work on housing, community banking, and capital formation, we're dedicated to restoring affordability, expanding opportunity, and making the American dream fully attainable for all Americans. I look forward to our discussion today, our panel, and I yield back.
Well, there's definitely two different points of view with regard to the economy. I mean, from the elected officials and from the government standpoint, we are just rocking and rolling, full steam ahead. Everything's looking perfect. The stock market is exploding. Everything's just looking great. But when you look down on the middle class, it ain't looking all that great at all. I mean, like the amount of debt that we're holding is at record highs. Consumer debt is just off the charts completely. Student loan debt is still insanely high. The mortgage rates are high, but I think if they lower the mortgage rates, it's only going to send the housing prices up even higher. Plus, the building materials is still extremely high. Everything, man, everything's still a lot more expensive. Like the cost to remodel your house is probably, 3 times more expensive than it was in 2019? Okay, so we've got this Rep. Andy Barr on increasing housing affordability, supply. All right, so I think it's going to be a different segment. It's 5 minutes. So a lot of these videos are going to be 5 minutes in length, so I may not have time to play the entirety of all of these, but the ones that I'll pause and move to the next one, I'll repost those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Brooks, welcome back to the committee. I think the testimony that you offered about the nexus between federal bank policy, overregulation of the banking sector, and affordable housing is very timely. As you know, Chairman Hill and I introduced the Main Street Act to right-size regulation so that especially our community banks can focus on the housing market and help Americans achieve the goal of home ownership. Your point that non-banks currently originate the large majority of all mortgages while banks originate the remainder, most of those loans wind up on government-related balance sheets with only about 10% of mortgage credit risk borne by the private sector, I think is a very important point. You highlight two causes. First, Dodd-Frank's disincentivizing mortgage lending, and then second, bank supervision, leading banks to be wary of lending to apartment owners and developers, and the negative signal that sends. How might the Main Street Act that we've proposed help solve these problems and enhance community banks, in particular, their ability to help Americans achieve the American dream of home ownership?
Well, Mr. Barr, thank you for the question. It's great to see you again, and thanks for your leadership on that bill in particular. It's a great idea. I would argue the most important idea of the package that the committee's looking at. And I say that because community banks are so much better credit managers of these kinds of loans than are Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And why? Because they live in the local community where they know the asset, they know the borrower, they know the history of the asset. I think about Mr. Huizenga's story about his small apartment building in Michigan, right, where the local bank that knew him well was not allowed to invest in that loan, and instead it got shipped off to some bank someplace else that wouldn't know it as well. So first of all, an enormous amount of deployable capital sits in banks below $10 billion, which is what you're focusing on in this Main Street Act.
And nothing wrong with non-bank mortgage originators, but more competition, the better. Competition 100%. In credit markets lowers costs, 100%. Obviously, and don't forget the fact that most of
also
up to
home
60%
sellers coming back
of
to
all
reality.
Of the 1 to 4 family residential construction and land development loans are community bank held. And so another reason to promote regulatory tailoring for these community banks.
Okay, all right, so let's go to the next one. Watch Rep. Loudermilk, here, let me repost that, on how unnecessary government regulation inflates housing prices. This should be
Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here today. I go back to when I first ran for Congress in 2014. As a small business owner, I wanted to engage with businesses of all sizes in my district. So I spent many, many hours meeting with various businesses. And I asked them, what is the key? What is it that I can do in Congress to help you expand, help for your business to be profitable, which we all know if a business is profitable, then the community is profitable. And I can't recall anyone saying anything differently, is that the common answer was the greatest cost to our business is government regulation, to a T. I even asked a group of executives, I said, which would be more important to you, for us to lower taxes or cut regulation? You know what they all said?
Of course.
Cut regulation.
Yep.
Taxes are important, but regulation is the greatest drain on our profitability. With housing in mind, I started doing some research, and I came across a study, and this was in 2014, that in some markets, over 50% of the cost of a new home is related to government regulation. And I started thinking about that. You could cut the cost of a new home significantly just by reducing the regulation. And as we look further, there's a lot of regulation that is not even applicable to the business that.
Well, and also, look, like the cost of lumber, building materials to build these houses have gone up significantly since COVID. And I can't help, just based on his statement, I can't help but wonder how much government regulation has gone into the cost of lumber and like everything from lumber to the nails to the concrete, anything that goes into building a house. How, with the cost of all of this having gone up so much, especially since the COVID era, even under the Biden administration, how much of that has been fueled by government regulations, new regulations that they've put in? Probably a bunch of climate change bullshit. I bet that if they were to strip that away, maybe the cost to build a house isn't as expensive as it is, or it should be about the same cost as it was in 2019, because we did have the supply chain shortage that happened during COVID. But of course, we recovered from it. I'm sure we're back to producing just as much as we were in 2019. Like, why wouldn't we? COVID's not a thing anymore. Everybody's back to work now. So I just can't help but wonder how much government regulation was put into the building material.
Is having to live by that regulation. And so if you want to look at the high cost, we need to look at the regulation side. And I think that's what really we're focused on this side of the dais here, is how can we do that? Mr. Brooks, you mentioned in your testimony that most Americans know that everything got more expensive over the past 5 years as the country experienced this incredible inflation, the highest since the 1970s. But a lot of people don't know that housing inflation was dramatically worse. Can you talk about why we saw that spike in housing inflation?
Yeah, so Mr. Loudermilk, one of the worst parts of that problem is the 5 million unit housing deficit is not new. The 5 million unit housing deficit goes back basically.
Dude, like the average house costs like $210,000 or $220,000 in 2019, right before COVID happened, and then just in a couple of few years, everything doubled. It doubled, and like you said, the housing deficit hasn't changed much. Of course, we had a huge amount of illegal immigrants that poured into the country, but the vast majority of them weren't buying homes. They weren't taking out mortgages that caused our rents to go up like crazy. And then now that over 2 million of them have been deported, our rents are obviously going back down. I think it's dropped like year over year about 7%.
To the immediate post-financial crisis era, and nobody's built a house since is almost what it feels like, okay? And that was the point where two things happened at the same time.
They are here in Florida, at least.
We had bad credit management, which meant many people had negative equity in their houses and couldn't move for work and couldn't sell their houses.
That sure as hell ain't the case right now.
And the other is we overcorrected on the credit side. And I would argue that a corrective was needed. We needed something like Dodd-Frank. But with 15 years of experience of that kind of regulatory environment, banks can't do business. We could talk about it in the housing context, as we've already done, but Mr. O'Leary's mentioned factoring and inventory finance for a while. The federal bank regulators have more or less prohibited factoring as a business line for banks. Venture debt doesn't exist in the United States after Silicon Valley Bank failed. These are all overcorrections where there's a strong demand for a product, and when you drive the regulated institutions out, what you're left with is the hard money lenders and the scary guys nobody wants to talk about. That's got to be fixed.
Well,
Okay, all right, I'm gonna have to stop that there, but again, I'm gonna repost that. We'll move on to the next video, or the next clip. Rep. Huizenga on the regulatory burden bureaucracy places on the housing supply. So we'll give this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And zoning is a big issue. And Dr. Hamilton, we haven't had a chance to meet, but Mr. Brooks, Mr. O'Leary, Mr. Moore, good to see you all again. Location, location, location. Watchword in real estate. Well, it's also supply, 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 and demand, demand, demand. All right? My own family has been experienced in housing for over 3 generations. We have been in the aggregate business. We have been in the, for 3 generations. 2 generations have been in the ready-mix concrete and housing development business. Personally, I was a realtor after I graduated with my also employable political science degree. And my brother is currently a realtor. We have seen barrier after barrier after barrier be put up by every level of government, including with zoning, at the local level, the state level, and yes, the federal level. Mr. Brooks, you hit the nail on the head when your discussion about why local banks and regional banks are no longer holding mortgages because of a disincentive under Dodd-Frank. It has radically changed how the banking business relates to the real estate and to the housing industry. In fact, I most recently just did a 24-unit condominium project that we started just before COVID and finished mercifully after COVID. I can tell you that when we went to the bank that we have done business with as a family for 3 generations, they wouldn't lend the money to do the real estate development. Why? Were we a bad credit risk? Did we not have enough cash in the bank as family businesses? 3 or 4 family businesses all banked there? No, it had anything to do with that. It was the regulators thought they were overweighted in real estate. Therefore, we had to go find another bank. We did. We successfully found another local bank. And oh, by the way, 3 acquisitions later, we were back with the original bank that had denied us the ability to get the loan to do the development. It's fascinating to me that people are not seeing it for all what it is about, which is really, truly supply and that demand. And we have supply not matching demand right now. Mr. Moore, yesterday, the House, we overwhelmingly, and congratulations, both sides of the aisle
have enough demand.
We passed the Bipartisan Housing for the 21st Century Act. Federal Reserve is set to have a new chairman. And just talk to me briefly, very briefly, how you believe lowering rates in the future can make housing more affordable for low-income and middle-class families.
Okay, well, I was about to go to the next one, but I would love to hear his answer on that because I think the opposite is going to happen. If they lower rates, it's going to fuel a driving up because a lot of people are holding off until interest rates drop, even though it's all about the underlying cost. And if he's trying to suggest that there's not a high demand for housing right now, the only reason is because the housing costs are too high. If housing values drop, then of course the demand is going to go up.
I'm sorry, which? The lowering, your microphone, please. The lowering of interest rates. How is that going to benefit those lower and middle income families?
Well, one of the things I wanted to say regarding this is that
bunch of jargon that we don't understand, probably.
Zoning. And the city in the United States, there's one major city in the United States that virtually has no zoning, and that's Houston. And if you look at my testimony, guess what? That has some of the lowest cost housing. So there's no question that
what does that have to do with interest
exactly
rates?
Right. That zoning has really dramatically restricted the supply. You're so right, Congressman.
Okay, great.
It's all about the law of supply and demand. And when you have zoning restrictions that dramatically reduce the availability of multifamily homes, you're going to see the prices of homes rise.
Yeah, but I think most of us want single-family homes, not multifamily.
Yeah, mine too. By the way, they're worried about
interest
that.
rates,
and interest rates certainly are a part of that affordability. Mr. O'Leary, you've been very successful both.
Oh, for freaking crying out loud. All right, whatever. I'll just move on to the next one. Economist Stephen Moore blasts the high cost of living in Democrat states. More, the cost of living is much, much higher in blue states than it is in red states. I mean, we could pretty well skip this one for the most part, but I'll
cost
give it
of
a play
living
anyway.
is much, much higher
in
blue
obvious.
states than it is in red states. That's just a fact. And so if you look, for example, at one of the charts in my testimony, you'll see that
density of
the areas where housing is more affordable, the cities are, I'll give you the ones with the most affordable housing. San Antonio, Virginia Beach, Memphis, Houston, Birmingham, Jacksonville, Oklahoma City, Tucson, Atlanta, St. Louis. What do they have in common? Oh, yeah, they're all in red states. What are the most expensive places to buy a house? San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles, San Diego, New York, Seattle, Boston, Sacramento. I mean, this isn't complicated. All of these regulations and the high taxes, all of those things that are imposed in blue states add to the cost of buying a house and make housing less affordable.
Well, yeah, and that's why they're losing their population in some of those areas because they're too damn expensive and they overregulate and they overtax everybody. Okay, so this is the entirety of that hearing. Is this going to be? No, I think this is just going to be strictly on the X platform. So let me just give a look and see. It is 3 hours in length. I'll repost it. I'm sure it's probably over here on YouTube also. Not sure if they have their own YouTube channel. It's possible the Financial Services GOP might. But anyway, I'll have that linked in my profile if you want to check that out. A direct link to my profile down below. And this is going to be from the Energy and Commerce Committee, which will be, let's see, strengthening motor vehicle safety and advancing U.S. automotive leadership. So let's see, the Safe Vehicle Access for Survivors Act requires manufacturers who produce connected vehicles to terminate or disable a domestic abuser's access to vehicles and data when a domestic violence survivor requests. What? Okay, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak in support of H.R. 2110, the Safe Vehicle Access for Survivors Act, led by my colleagues, Mrs.
That
Dingell
sounds like
and
a
Mr.
really
Crenshaw.
slippery slope,
Thank you
man.
both for your bipartisan leadership on this incredibly important issue.
Next thing you know, they're going to disable your vehicle because you're 5 minutes late on your payment.
The Safe Vehicle Access for Survivors Act requires manufacturers who produce connected vehicles to terminate or disable a domestic abuser's access to a vehicle's connected capabilities and data at the request of a domestic violence survivor. This bill takes a concrete step to protect and empower survivors of domestic violence to step away from their abusers. The freedom of a vehicle can be literally life-saving for a victim. And
But look, if she's only talking about like somebody's domestic abuser not being able to access the data that's equipped inside the vehicle, such as their driving history, their GPS information, yeah, sure, I'm all about that. But if they're talking about having an ability to disable a vehicle, I ain't cool with that. That's crazy.
any abuser access to the connected capabilities or data can put that victim's life in danger.
Okay, yeah, it sounds like she's talking
Being
about like
able to cut
GPS
off
and
that
stuff.
access is
Makes
critical.
sense.
And this bill will help and save domestic violence victims across the country. I am proud to support this bill. And again, I thank the co-sponsors for their leadership on such a profoundly important issue. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I yield back the balance of.
Okay, well, or you could just buy a vehicle that was manufactured before, I don't know, like 2015, or at such a time where they weren't adding SIM cards into the vehicle that's like wired up with GPS and all this other crazy stuff we have in our vehicles now. So the PART Act is a simple bill requiring NHTSA Gov to update its theft prevention standard to add catalytic converters to the list of parts that must be marked with identifiable information. Catalytic converter theft is costly for American families. Yeah, man, especially in the brand new cars. I heard some of those catalytic converters can get over $1,000. It's crazy, crazy expensive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, for holding this important markup today. I just wanted to take a moment to briefly speak in favor of the bipartisan Preventing Auto Recycling Thefts Act, or PART.
It's funny that the other committee was talking about cutting regulations like crazy, and this committee seems to be talking about adding more regulations.
This important bill would provide law enforcement with the tools to trace stolen catalytic converters back to the source. Currently, catalytic converters are not
Unless
one
they
of the
give it to a
18
scrapyard and they
vehicle
just
parts
melt it
required to be marked with a VIN or a number traceable to a VIN. Law enforcement groups have gone onto the record to state that including that tracing in legislation is critical to helping defer the theft and trafficking of stolen catalytic converters, which makes it easier to prosecute the criminals that are committing these crimes. Catalytic converter theft is an issue my home state of Colorado has grappled with, in addition to car thefts, as a result of statewide soft-on-crime
Here's an idea. Why don't you
policies.
round
In
up your
fact,
criminally illegal
our Attorney
immigrants?
General Phil
That would make a
Weiser just
dent
a
in
few
it.
years ago remarked that car thieves should be kept in jail only after, quote, someone commits a third or a fourth car theft in 3 months, end quotes. He went on to identify the best way of combating catalytic converter theft as, quote, purchasing insurance that covers your catalytic converter if
that's
stolen,
retarded.
end quote. As a police officer in the Denver
insane.
metro area for over 10 years, I saw the results of this soft-on-crime approach. It's partly why insurance costs have skyrocketed in Colorado, making our state the 5th most expensive state for auto insurance. Additionally, vehicles typically can't be driven without a catalytic converter.
Well,
And
brand new
supply
ones,
chain
maybe not.
backlogs coupled with heavy-handed bureaucracy.
You know what? Your old school cars, like your 90s cars and your 2000s vehicles, they can drive just fine without it. It's just really noisy. Of course, if somebody steals your catalytic converter, you got to be, figure out a way to prop up your exhaust system or remove the back half of it That's after your catalytic converter.
red tape and overregulation
Otherwise, it's going to be dragging
can
around on the
result in a
pavement.
9-month delay in getting a replacement catalytic converter. I've seen it happen. Lack of transportation results in missed doctor's appointments, lost wages, difficulty getting kids to school, and so many other negative outcomes.
Well, and maybe instead of just adding more regulations and a bunch of other stuff, why don't they just weld it all in as one single piece? Look, I'm not that crazy about that idea because it'd make it harder just for everyday people like me to be able to remove it. I replaced my catalytic converter about 1.5 years ago because I thought it was clogged. Turns out I was wrong, but still, my car's almost 30 years old, so I figured I'd replace it anyway. And it was simply bolt on. It was easy to remove it, put on a new one. So I could see the benefits and the burdens when it comes to that. Although if they welded on catalytic converters, okay, yeah, I guess you could take a saw to it and you could physically cut it off, but that's probably what they're doing anyway, so.
In contrast to a soft-on-crime approach, this bill takes the problem seriously by actually increasing criminal penalties for this kind of crime, while also providing assistance to eligible entities like auto repair shops and
that
service
would fall under
centers
grand theft,
to be able
wouldn't
to
it?
stamp the VIN on
catalytic
catalytic
converters generally
converters,
cost more
which
than
helps
$500.
law enforcement track that stolen piece of equipment. My constituents deserve real solutions, which the PART Act helps to deliver with a national framework to combat catalytic converter theft. I'm proud to support this bipartisan bill, and I urge my colleagues to join me today in voting it out of committee. Thank you.
All right, just more regulations for you. Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Rep. Guthrie speaks on his bill, the Motor Vehicle Modernization Act of 2026. This bill will improve roadway safety, modernize NHTSA Gov, and support the automotive industry by streamlining bureaucratic processes. In other words, they want to probably wire up a whole bunch of other nonsense into our cars that we probably don't really need. But let's hear him out.
Thank you, Chairman. Our primary task here today are to strengthen the motor vehicle safety, modernize NHTSA, and unlock innovation in the automotive industry. The Motor Vehicle Modernization Act advances all three of these objectives. First, the bill improves roadway safety by revamping new car assessment program to incentivize automakers to deploy new safety technologies, ensure efficient and effective vehicle recall process,
like we already don't have
consumer
enough.
understanding of vehicle automation technologies. Second, we
We're gonna
modernize
bring
the
up the
agency
cost of cars even
responsible
more.
for vehicle safety, NHTSA, by requiring the agency to clearly plan and prioritize its vehicle safety research and rulemaking work, regularly review regulations and updates, and reduce unnecessary paperwork. And third, the bill supports the continued strength of the U.S. automotive industry by streamlining and bolstering the general exemption process and modernizing an agency critical to the success of the industry. I look forward to working with my colleagues on this issue, and I will yield.
Well, look, if they're trying to streamline paperwork and they're trying to streamline, bureaucratic systems, I mean, that's one thing. But just adding more just quote unquote safety features to a vehicle, I mean, like what the hell else is there to add? I mean, they've got all kinds of stuff. They even have what was passed during the Biden administration. They're supposed to be equipping brand new cars starting in 2026 with breathalyzer technology. It's supposedly new vehicles. I don't know if they've rolled out with them just yet. They were supposed to in 2026 to have technology, which I think it includes cameras that are pointed at you at all times, and it measures your eye movement. And if your eye movement seems to suggest that you're impaired, your car won't start. And that's already in the federal law right now. So they're working on rolling all that out. All right, anyway, Self-Drive Act positions America to be a global leader in autonomous vehicles by promoting safety and innovation. Chairman Rep. Gus Bilirakis, that's interesting. I used to vote for him because he's a rep in northern Pinellas County and Pasco County. I used to live up there. I actually voted for him a couple of times. Highlights how this bill will help to save and improve lives, reduce traffic crashes, and give independence to senior citizens and people with disabilities. Oh, that's interesting. He's the chairman, too. That's kind of wild.
I recognize myself for 5 minutes to speak in support of the underlying bill, H.R. 7390. The Self-Drive Act is a vital piece of legislation that establishes a federal framework for the safe deployment of autonomous vehicles, or AVs. Make no mistake, the first and foremost priority of the Self-Drive Act is safety. Through a safety case rulemaking and the AV data repository, this bill directs NHTSA to advance AV deployment in the safest way possible.
This is going to kill a ton
Ensuring
of
the
jobs,
advancement
man.
of AVs is critical to our country. As I
Imagine the
mentioned in
delivery
my
sector.
opening
That's going to wipe out
statement,
everything.
AVs hold enormous potential as technological advancements to save and improve lives. Whether it is reducing traffic crashes and fatalities caused by human error or returning mobility and independence to seniors and people with disabilities, AVs hold hope for a safer and more accessible future for our country. We have the chance to secure that future with the bill before us. We cannot delay and let this moment, and this is a life-saving technology, folks. We can't let this moment pass by.
Well,
no one understands this better
right.
than my good friend Bob Latta, chairman of the Energy Committee,
autonomous vehicles, they're
the
still
sponsor
killing
of this
people
bill
occasionally.
as well, and a champion of advancing AVs. Thank you, Bob, of course, for your years of hard work and commitment to getting this done. While this bill is only sponsored by Mr. Latta, in the past it has largely been a bipartisan effort, and I expect it will be. I know we were close this time around, so I hope we can find that bipartisanship that we have had before.
Okay. Well, I mean, look, if somebody wants to drive an autonomous vehicle, then, by all means, we do live in a free country, as long as you don't take away my right to drive my vehicle, which is 100% analog, built in the 90s from the great country of Japan. And back when they used to build vehicles extremely well and very simply, as long as they don't take that away, then fine, they can do whatever. It's just gonna put a lot of people out of work, especially with regard to Uber and Lyft. The rideshare programs, those are all going to go away if they autonomize everything, which they're already working on doing that. They have been for a long time. Waymo, they're already rolling all that out. And I'm sure with delivery services like Amazon drivers, because if they could get the Amazon vehicles to drive autonomously, I mean, you could pretty much bet your bottom dollar they're going to come up with a contraption that's going to deliver your packages to your front porch. And of course, that's going to extend to food delivery, pizza delivery. I don't know, like this little, I can already see it, this little rover that just rolls out of the vehicle and just rolls right up to your front porch, just drops it right there on your porch and returns back to the vehicle, and off it goes. Okay, so today we are working on legislation that will help modernize the automotive industry, strengthen automotive safety, and ensure how do you say that? NHTSA, I always say NHTSA, has the tools that they need to succeed. And he highlights why the legislation comes at such an important time. Did we already see that or no? It's on the same account, so apparently we haven't yet.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Bilirakis, for convening the subcommittee today. And we are here to advance proposals to modernize the automotive industry, strengthen motor vehicle safety, and ensure the agency responsible for that mission, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, has the tool it needs to succeed. I want to begin by recognizing my good friend, the ranking member, Frank Pallone. We share an understanding that when this committee works across the aisle, the results are lasting and durable, and hope that we can bring that bipartisan spirit to the work before us today. The importance of this legislation cannot be overstated. The automotive sector is America's largest manufacturing base, supporting over 10 million jobs and contributing to more than $1 trillion to our economy, and its impact on our cultural identity is undeniable. I know firsthand the economic impact the auto industry has in Kentucky and across the country. This is an industry that spurs kitchen table conversations in our constituents' homes. On the global stage, our strategic competitors, particularly China, are speeding ahead to expand vehicle production and accelerate innovation. As American manufacturers work hard to stay ahead, Congress must help clear the road so they can maintain their global leadership. Many of the proposals before us today do exactly that. They are designed to improve safety, promote affordability, and cement America global leadership, automotive leadership in the years to come. This includes efforts to reform NHTSA by modernizing its research and regulatory mission, strengthening key motor vehicle programs, and advancing legislation to establish a federal framework for safety deployment of autonomous vehicles. As we move these bills forward today, there's still more work to be done, but I appreciate the opportunity to take another step in the process.
All right. Okay. So and it looks like we're going to move to energy and commerce. Or are we still on that? Yeah. Okay. So we're still on the Commerce Committee. Oh, okay. That's right. This is the video in its entirety. So we've got the whole thing here, and it's going to be 2 hours and 45 minutes. I'll give that also a repost. And the next one's going to be House Committee on Education. I am running out of time. This is the first time that I've juggled around so many of these committee hearings. I'm used to only seeing like 1 or 2 in a day, and they did a whole bunch today, and it was all over my feed, so I was just grabbing them as I went. So for this one, okay, for education, I'm just going to take a quick look and see what else we have. Senate, Commerce, okay, so that one, and what else do we have? Okay, so I still have 3 more to go through. Good grief, I don't think I'm going to have time. but I'll do what I can with the limited time that I have, though. All right, from the House Committee on Education and Workforce. Throughout history, parents have always been the best caretakers and guardians for their kids. So why is that up for debate now? Well, because Democrats, they want to have control over your children, not you as the parent.
Ms. Parshall-Perry, you mentioned in your testimony, and I quote, that parental rights are pre-political, ancient, and fundamentalist. I agree fully. Can you explain more what that means and how these three pillars are essential to preventing government tyranny?
Absolutely. These are connections that are rooted in biology, the very nature of the parent-child relationships, which predates not only government, but the Constitution itself. In fact, some of the earliest writings that we see are from the 13th century in Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, in which he wrote about the nature of the parent-child relationship and how it is fundamental. It is that basic building block of all civilized societies, and it is something on which the Supreme Court first weighed in 1923 in Meyer versus Nebraska, recognizing that this was a right that simply had to be found somewhere in the Constitution because we knew it had always existed from time immemorial.
Well, amen. I mean, obviously that should go completely without saying. And we've got this Mahmoud versus Taylor protects all the rights of all parents to exercise religious freedom and opts students out of lessons that go against religious beliefs. Let's have a look.
It is true that even prior to Mahmoud, districts across the country do allow opt-outs, right?
The key there is that it's the districts that allow the opt-outs.
Right, but the existence of opt-outs is not inherently destabilizing in some sense, is it?
Absolutely not. What's destabilizing is constitutionalizing opt-outs.
Do you think opt-outs are appropriate in some circumstances?
Sure.
Okay, but you think that that there's no constitutional basis for that?
There's no broad general constitutional basis for that. It should be a local decision made by the districts themselves.
I see. So for the parents in Montgomery County who had very strong objections to this content, what was their recourse in your view of the law?
They may not have had recourse. Democracy would be their recourse.
Democracy would be the recourse.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so you don't think there are circumstances in which there might be rights that individuals hold, irrespective of what the overriding policy of their jurisdiction is?
Well, the question isn't, are there rights? The question is this the right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that you just made an important concession, which is that you would leave parents without a recourse, no matter how vile, no matter how discriminatory the curriculum that presented in their classroom is. And I think that's a serious problem. And I think that you paint this decision as somehow some sort of rupture in jurisprudence or destabilizing. But actually, I think what's different now is the type of content that's coming into classrooms and the fact that districts are refusing to provide opt-outs for that content. So, Mr. Baxter, do you think that is an appropriate characterization?
It's important to remember that American democracy is tempered by the Bill of Rights, which protects the rights of individuals to live consistent with their religious beliefs, their own speech. And I spoke to a Washington Post reporter who had a similar view to Mr. Rothschild, but he wanted to object his children on issues that were concerning to him. And so every parent has their own opt-outs, and it's important to realize that Mahmoud protects the rights of all parents.
Yeah, well, and the Democrats, they don't want the parents to exercise any rights because they believe that the students, they're their own human beings. They have their own individual rights, so they should be allowed to decide for themselves, which they're not giving them the option to opt out either. They're just like, well, if you don't listen to the curriculum, if you don't take the test, you don't get a passing grade. Okay, we should be teaching kids to read and write, not pushing ideology in classrooms. So why is it happening?
I want to just talk for a moment that one of the things that overwhelmed me was just kind of the attack or the villainization of parents that seemed to be working,
especially in
from
Loudoun
the
County,
board's
Virginia.
Perspective. And Mr. Daugherty, your testimony mentioned that MCPS was incredibly hostile to parents who had legitimate religious concerns about the curriculum. In fact, you quoted one board member who suggested that if the parents were right, the board would have to, quote, send out notices so white supremacists could opt out of civil rights contents.
Oh, what a piece of shit.
I find that absurd.
Yeah.
And the board should be ashamed of themselves
Evil
of
and
comparing
retarded.
Muslims and Christians to white supremacists. And so, Mr. Daugherty, I just want to ask you if you could take a moment just to give us your perspective about that comparison.
He's not going to.
As I said earlier, I think one of the things Mahmoud revealed is how disconnected
public schools are from the students and the families that they serve. The notion that
they serve the families,
Jewish families,
not the
Muslim
fucking party.
families, Christian families, Ethiopian Orthodox are white supremacists, or can even be equated to white supremacists.
Right.
That's insulting as anything. I mean, that making that kind of extreme analysis or analogy just shows how out of touch they were.
Still are.
Again, I think this is a problem in Montgomery County. Hopefully it's been resolved after they lost this lawsuit. But, the notion that this storybook series was necessary to, I think they said, disrupt heteronormative thinking, and which it seems to be something that I don't know why kindergartners need to be able to have that sort of thinking disrupted in order to learn to read and write and do mathematics.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. It's absolutely crazy. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next committee hearing. Okay, and this hearing is going to be on the Senate side, covering Jack Smith's secret subpoenas from Arctic Frost, and they also examined broadcast media ownership in the digital age. So Senator Lindsey Graham exposes Democrats in the mainstream media's hypocrisy on Arctic Frost. It's a quick one.
If the shoe were on the other foot, it'd be front page news all over the world that Republicans went after sitting Democratic senators.
Some bright-ass lights.
Phone records. It'd be news all over the world that 490 30 Democratic organizations had 197 subpoenas issued by some right-wing prosecutor.
Okay. I guess short and to the point. All right. That's all right. We got another one. Today, broadcasters are fighting to stay competitive against media and tech companies with national and often global reach, from Senator Ted Cruz.
If there's one thing that's clear, it's this. Current media ownership rules were written in a vastly different technological age. The days when broadcasters built a uniform global village across America's living rooms is over. As media has splintered into thousands of websites, TikTok accounts, podcasts, and other forms of content, each catering to its own niche audience. Yet even in this fragmented landscape, the media's ability to shape national discourse remains incredibly powerful, making questions about market concentration as important as ever.
Yeah, and from what I heard, what is it, ABC News, apparently they're trying to extend their reach into YouTube, and it sounds like slowly but surely the mainstream news is going to try to stretch their tentacles into YouTube as a whole, which they've been doing that for a long time. And YouTube, they usually platform them up to the top of the recommended sections, especially in the news media, and they suppress everybody else. But it sounds like it's possible that maybe they might be ramping that up even more in the near future. And Senator Marsha Blackburn, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile are under oath this morning to answer why they did or did not comply with Jack Smith's secret subpoenas from Arctic Frost. Those who enabled a weaponized DOJ's invasion of privacy are going to answer to the American people today.
And today we will be holding the first in what will be a series of Judiciary Committee hearings examining the corrupt Arctic Frost investigation that targeted President Trump, duly elected members of Congress, and thousands of conservatives across the country. These hearings will serve as a form of discovery for the committee as we continue to document and enter into the record all the facts surrounding the Arctic Frost witch hunt. And let me be clear, we need Jack Smith before us under oath so he can answer for his actions in this targeted, weaponized witch hunt. We are ultimately here this morning because Jack Smith violated his oath of office. He trampled on Americans' rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, all for one reason: to go after President Donald Trump and conservatives across this great nation. With the Biden DOJ's approval, Jack Smith issued 197 subpoenas to over 430 conservative organizations and individuals. That was the length that he went to go after President Trump. Jack Smith took a page out of the old Russian playbook by saying, "Give me the man and I will give you the case against him."
And
In
they
this
found
case,
nothing.
the man was President Trump and hundreds of conservative Americans who supported him. Luckily, we now have a commander-in-chief in the White House in President Trump who is working every day to root out the two-tiered system of justice implemented under Joe Biden that allowed this political witch hunt that targeted conservatives. Chairman Grassley began his work to uncover the atrocities
It makes you
of
wonder,
this
the
Arctic
Republican-controlled
Frost
Congress, what
investigation
exactly are
in
they going to do about it?
2022.
Hold hearings?
And thanks to brave
and complain about it?
whistleblowers that have come forward, we have learned a lot. We know that just days after President Trump announced his 2024 campaign, Jack Smith was named special counsel. We know that Jack Smith was determined to persecute President Trump and hundreds of conservatives across America who support him. And relevant to our hearing today, we know that Jack Smith secretly subpoenaed the phone records of sitting U.S. senators and congressmen. 5 members of this committee, Senators Graham, Lee, Cruz, Hawley, and I, had our phone records subpoenaed by Jack Smith, in addition to several other senators and members of the House. But Jack Smith didn't stop there. He also made sure that we didn't find out about this deep invasion of our privacy, ensuring that an Obama appointee, Judge James Boasberg, signed non-disclosure orders that were attached to the subpoenas and had no basis in fact. His basis for the gag orders, that sitting members of Congress would, and I quote directly from him, result in destruction of evidence, intimidation of potential witnesses, and serious jeopardy to the investigation, end quote. Think about that. Sitting members of Congress, and that is what he thought.
Are they investigating?
Additionally,
Is the FBI
we
on
know
it?
that Jack
Is there anybody
Smith's
investigating
corrupt team of prosecutors consulted with the Biden DOJ Public Integrity Section
actually get
and
some arrests out of
concluded
it?
essentially that while there was some litigation risk related to the speech and debate clause, they could go ahead with the subpoenas regardless because the affected members of Congress would never find out about this invasion of privacy and violation of constitutional rights. So they thought they could hide it, and we would never know. Well, thanks to brave whistleblowers and Chairman Grassley's unflinching investigative work, we found out about the subpoenas, and that is why we're holding the hearing today.
Yeah, so we can complain about it and then nothing happens. So, yeah, so they could bury it and we'll never find out about it. And if we find out about it, what are they going to do about it? They're just going to hold hearings and put it on the record that we found out about it. The end, I guess.
This morning, we'll examine how each of these wireless carriers, Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, responded to Jack Smith's unlawful, illegal subpoenas. Specifically, we'll look at the fact that Verizon and T-Mobile complied with Jack Smith's May 2023 subpoenas, no questions asked. We'll also hear from AT&T, who in the case of Senator Cruz did raise speech and debate clause concerns and pushed back against Jack Smith's demands, despite previously producing the phone records of Speaker Kevin McCarthy and Congressman Chip Roy. It's critical that each of these carriers go on the record about the decisions that they made and why, or why not, they enabled and worked with Jack Smith's weaponization of government. I'll close with this. If this kind of invasion of privacy can happen to sitting members of Congress and even the President of the United States, it can and probably will happen to all Americans unless we stop it right here.
Oh, come on now. The Patriot Act has probably been the case since 20 years.
This was the worst weaponization of government in American history, and I'm determined to ensure that Jack Smith is held accountable to prevent another Arctic frost from happening again. The American people deserve nothing less.
Okay. So, by the way, Arctic frost, is Jack Smith under criminal investigation? No, Jack Smith is not under criminal investigation. It refers to the code name for the part of the DOJ's probe led by Jack Smith into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election, not an investigation of Smith. He resigned in January after dropping charges against Trump following his re-election. Recent 2026 congressional hearings involve Republicans criticizing Smith's past work, subpoenaing phone records from telecoms related to his probes, and grilling witnesses about it, but no evidence shows any active criminal probe or indictment against Smith himself. So, I don't know, man. Is anything going to come of it? I mean, not to say that I have a whole lot of faith, because I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to go anywhere with this. They're just going to put it all on the record. We're just going to move on as if nothing ever happened. So anyway, this is the hearing in its entirety. So it was at today, 10:15 a.m. So let me just see where this goes. So it looks like it's going to be on judiciary.senate.gov, 2 hours and 24 minutes in its entirety. And I will have that linked, of course, and we'll roll on to, I think this might be the last hearing. So this hearing, it's going to be the House Ways and Means Committee. Let's see, how foreign actors have funneled millions of dollars through networks of tax-exempt organizations to create, support, and fuel disruption and illegal activity in America. So Rep. Vern Buchanan says, thank you to Rep. Jason Smith and Rep. Richard Neal for their kind words and partnership on the Ways and Means GOP. We've done important bipartisan work together, and the work is far from done. I look forward to continuing to deliver results for the American people.
Before we get started, I want to first recognize our vice chairman of the committee, Mr. Buchanan, on his well-earned retirement from Congress. Vern brought back did you not know that?
I've got some other recommendations.
Yeah. But I want to say he's been a wonderful vice chair, serving alongside this time, and we're going to miss him. He has been very focused on bipartisan issues. He was living cool, good health and preventative care before MAHA ever existed. This was a huge focus of Mr. Buchanan, who also serves as the chairman of the Health Subcommittee. He still has a full year to be with us. He's going to do a lot of great stuff. We're going to deliver, but we're definitely going to miss him on this side of the aisle. Mr. Neal.
Thanks, Chairman. I think I speak for everybody on our side. The sense of collegiality that he brought.
Okay, all right, whatever. We don't have to hear about his whole resignation. So foreign billionaires and foreign entities shouldn't have their thumb on the scale of American politics. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. With billions in foreign funding flowing through U.S. nonprofits, Americans deserve transparency, accountability, and real oversight.
And it's unfortunately all too common that foreign billionaires and foreign charities seem to have their thumb on the scale of American politics. Yes, we know that Hans-Jörg Wyss has funneled hundreds of millions of dollars, as has Christopher Hohn, and a smattering of foreign charities. Together, that identifies $2.7 billion of foreign money running through the nonprofit sector. That is a shocking amount to both the right and the left.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not going to stop anytime soon. Republicans, this is from the Ways and Means Democrats, Republicans are more focused on fueling conspiracy theories to appease their base than enforcing the laws for rooting out fraud and abuse.
The committee is absolutely right to be training its sights on improper foreign influence in American politics and policymaking. However, there's no need to be searching for dark conspiracies of foreign influence. The overwhelming problem of improper influence in American politics today stems from two things. First, the fundamental failure of the Trump administration to enforce the existing tools we have to deal with foreign influence and to actively undermine them. And secondly, the president's business and donor relationships that compromise him in a way that probably has no parallel in American history.
Sounds like somebody's a little triggered that USAID was shut down by the Trump administration. And so he doesn't seem to think that NGOs and nonprofits and foreign, like dark money influence, K Street lobbyists, like none of that influences anything. No, of course it doesn't. Okay, so this is going to be the entirety of the video, Ways and Means Committee. The committee is examining how foreign actors have funneled millions through networks of tax-exempt organizations to create support and fuel disruption and illegal activity in America. There were more video clips out there. I went way over time. I'm well over 2 hours at this point. I try to keep each video under 2 hours, which doesn't usually end up playing out. But I've got other stuff to get through, like J.D. Vance. He was in Azerbaijan today. So I'm not going to have any time to play any of this. Again, this is the first time that I came across so many committee hearings in one video. So maybe I'll learn from this, and in the future, I'll try to condense it down a little better. Mark Wayne Mullen, the Save America Act provides multiple ways to prove your U.S. citizenship and identity to register to vote, as millions of citizens, including married women, do every day. We must pass the SAVE Act. And then there's a video on that. Mike Lee also given his input on the SAVE Act. Require proof of citizenship to register an ID to vote in federal elections. Common sense security measures supported by a majority of Democrats and Republicans across America. The swamp's goal is to lie about it. And Chuck Schumer, of course, he says the SAVE Act's goal is disenfranchising over 21 million Americans and making it harder for eligible people to vote, particularly in low-income Americans and people of color. That's the truth. The SAVE Act is dead on arrival in the Senate. Senate Democrats will not sign on to stripping the right to vote from tens of millions of American citizens. So, yeah, because they don't want our election system to be fortified, because it would strip away a lot of those votes that they would otherwise be getting. There seems to be some confusion about the Save America Act. Oh, okay, I already read that earlier. That was the one that I scrolled down to find earlier, regarding all the birth certificate and all that. So Mike Rogers, for too long, hardworking families have been priced out of the American dream of owning your own home. When I get to the Senate, we're going to fix that. Here's my 4-key plan to unlocking homeownership for Michigan families. And I'll repost that if you're curious to take a look at that. And Richard Hudson, housing costs are crushing families. It's basic math. We're short up to 5.5 million homes after years of red tape, slow permits, rising building costs, outdated zoning, and reckless immigration that spikes demand. Here's how the House GOP is fixing it. So, okay, so he's got a couple of posts here about that. Housing for the 21st Century Act by Rep. French Hill. This bill expands housing supply by cutting unnecessary regulations, speeding permits with pre-approved home designs, modernizing HUD programs, and updating rules for manufactured housing. Helps community and rural banks finance new homes by cutting paperwork, freeing up local lending, more homes, faster builds, strong local banks, more affordable choices. Well, I mean, I think we already heard in the committee that a lot of it has to do with regulation. They cut away a lot of that regulation, then all of a sudden it should be a lot cheaper to build housing. And all right, so what else do I have? House GOP, American Dream of Homeownership Attainable again, Housing for the 21st Century Act, which we pretty much got all that through the committee. And real quick, Madagascar, they're about to get hit by a Category 5 hurricane. I didn't even know Madagascar got tropical systems, but apparently they do. Tropical cyclone Genzani is expected to make landfall in the Toa Messina 2 district around 6 p.m. local time today. February 10th, at time of impact, estimated wind gusts could reach 155 miles an hour. In addition, the storm will generate heavy rainfall and so on and so forth. So it's just a weather alert put out by TravelGov, which of course is a government entity. And U.S. Southern Command, all right, this is only 10 seconds. On February 9th, Direction Southcom Commander General Francis L. Donovan, Joint Task Force Southern Spear, conducted a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel operated by designated terrorist organizations. I mean, you know how it goes. This is basically copy-paste from all the other ones that they've engaged in the past. And I think I've played every single one since they started conducting these strikes back in September. So let's give this a quick play. Of course, there's no sound. There's never sound. It's from a drone, I'm assuming. And boom! And boom! Another one. A third one. Or no, 2. Okay, 2. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like there's somebody there on the back of the boat. I mean, dude, clearly drugs. Like, you could see the bricks right there, these bales. There's bales there, the bales up here in the front, and I'm sure they're stowing a lot more underneath. And anyway, took them out. And that happened yesterday, February 9th. Department of War lethality at its best. The F-35 Lightning II, advanced, stealthy, and superior. Let me give that a repost, but I'm also going to give this a like because I'll probably show this on tomorrow's episode. Teachers should be forced to bankroll political agendas. Union dues are optional nationwide. I think I'm going to do the same thing. I'll repost that also. And finally, NASA's Kennedy Space Center. NASA and SpaceX are now targeting no earlier than 5:15 a.m. Eastern, Friday, February 13th. Oh man, that's some bad luck. Friday the 13th. For launch of the Crew 12 mission to the International Space Station from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Thursday is no longer an option due to forecast weather conditions along Crew 12's flight path, and the latest can be found at this link, go.nasa or on nasa.gov. Although, yeah, I mean, a lot of people consider Friday the 13th to be an unlucky day, but from my personal perspective, I find it to be a lucky day because my daughter was born on a Friday the 13th day. So I don't know how often that happens. What is that, like twice a year or something? So it's like roughly like a 1 in 180 chance or whatever it might be. So anyway, that, let's see. Do I have anything else? Nope, I don't believe I do. That is everything for this episode. I had to really rush it because I'm like cooking dinner, believe it or not. I'm in the middle of doing this, so I went over on my time, but tomorrow should be a shorter episode. AG Pam Bondi, she will be testifying before the committee tomorrow, so I'm sure I'm gonna find some content on that, and I'll be sharing that tomorrow on The Swamp for Wednesday's episode. So if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It'll mean a lot to me if you subscribe, and I'll be dropping a new show tomorrow evening as I do The Swamp Monday through Friday, covering everyone in it, the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the agencies. And also I'm posting daily on X, so feel free to comment there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.